fucking nerds. Who wants a shot at the champ?
The money line. We are live. It's an off week for the fights, but we got some great stuff in store. Mike, what's up, my brother?
Man, we're killing it here in Huntington Beach, just living the dream, but we brought the firepower today. We usually talk about the fighters. We had to bring a champ in the building today for you guys.
Yeah, I'm super excited to bring him in. He's actually already backstage, so I am going to let the champion of the world, Ryan Bader, come on through.
No lies on me.
Ryan Bader, the champion of the world. What's up, my brother?
All good. How about you guys?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Doing well. Ryan, good to see you, man. Obviously, I've got to see you perform over at Bellator and, see you doing your thing at light heavyweight and heavyweight. You just put on a dominant performance out there in Paris. I haven't seen or heard from you since. You just enjoying the win? What you been up to, Ryan?
Yeah, for a week, my wife came out with some friends, and while we're over there, we always try to take advantage. Anytime I fought like overseas or in another country, we'll stay for a while. And we kind of jumped around, went down south of France and went to Dublin and then came back and then right into, kids stuff, end of the year, finishing up sports, all that kind of good stuff. So, just been laying low a little bit, enjoying the time with the family.
Don't tell my wife, Ryan. She's been trying to get me to take her to Paris for like 5 years now, bro. Don't let her know.
You're not missing anything, really.
Oh,
it's cool. I mean, I was there for 8 days, get acclimated and all that. And I'm kind of a beach guy, or, Dublin was cool. It was just, different. Paris was very cool, but it's a big city. I was ready to leave by that time, which we did, and jumped around. But fortunate enough to, I fought all over the world, and I wouldn't have gone to these different places if it wasn't for MMA. I've been to Tokyo, Germany, Australia a couple times. Sweden, all for fights, and it's a good excuse for my family, my friends to get together and do something that they normally want to do. Hey, you're fighting over there. Let's all go out, and made a ton of memories with family and friends all through the sport, really.
That's epic, man. That's absolutely epic. I try to do the same thing, right? Turn it into a little trip, bring the family along. That's awesome, man. You seem like the type of guy to, I don't know, go wild boar hunting or some shit. Paris isn't your scene, huh?
No, I like doing different stuff. I do love the outdoors and all that, but I like to try to get in. I can chill, but I'm usually like go, and I like to do the non-touristy stuff. And we fought in like Sweden, we went down to Prague, and we drove like an hour and a half and went to a church. It's called the Church of Bones or something. It's has thousands and thousands of human bones and skulls of old warriors where they're hit by an arrow and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff to me is super cool. Get off that kind of beaten path and do that kind of stuff.
I've never heard of that. AJ, you ever heard of the House of Bones? What did he call it? Holy
the Church of Bones or something?
Church of Bones, man. Listen, I don't know, man. I know Mike's not big into those skepticisms. I don't know if some ghosts will be coming back with me or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could do it.
I'm not superstitious. Are you superstitious, Ryan Bader?
You know what? I'd say like more OCD by the time like fight rolls around. I don't know what it is. Like, it's just little stuff. Like, if I touch something, I'm like, oh, I got to touch another corner of the table or something. It's only around fight time. And then I have a weird deal. Like, if you walked into my hotel room, fight day or fight night, I have everything packed, everything in order, and spotless, and it's just a weird thing I have. And I guess it's a superstition. I've never not done that. And I kind of did that in wrestling too. So I don't know what that is. Maybe, everything is done. Everything is, there. So now it's time to go do it.
Wow. That's cool.
I got a question for you, Ryan. So looking towards the landscape of this Bellator heavyweight division, I guess who's kind of like the guy you're keeping an eye on? I know like you beat Fedor like really quick And I know they wanted to do that farewell fight, and I know he kind of wanted to maybe do the rematch with you. Like, is that a fight that you kind of want to jump on?
Yeah, I'm definitely good. I thought that was going to be the fight that they were going to make after I beat Moldavsky,
in Russia.
I beat one of his guys, and and I thought he was going to come into the cage. We were square off, and my manager was in the cage after that fight. And he came up to me real quick and he was like, "Hey, you're fighting Congo in Paris, May 6th or whatever." I'm like, "Oh, all right," and that's really the first fight I've never. They just kind of threw on me, which was fine. I wanted to kind of go back to back. But yeah, I mean, that fight still interests me. There's a lot of talk with Bellator and all that with fighting Linton Vassell, a rematch at heavyweight. He's been on a huge tear. And if I look at it just like on the rankings, who's beat who, that's a guy that makes sense, But yeah, I mean, any Fedor fight is a huge fight. It's kind of lose-lose for me as far as like, how am I going to do any better? I have a win over him already, but at the same time, it's Fedor. There's huge fight, a lot of eyeballs, and you really can't, pass up the opportunity to fight him.
I feel like the Fedor, like 2 wins over Fedor for the legacy.
Right.
It's a great thing for you, bro. Like, we'll take it. We'll take it. Now,
Exactly.
funny with Vassell that you brought him up, because it's interesting, right? You, I feel like, are performing at your absolute best right now at heavyweight, and that's no longer doing that weight cut. Vassell's a guy who at 205, you fought him, you beat him up, fairly dominantly, but now he's kind of done his thing up at heavyweight. So it's interesting to see how the weight cut not being there has affected you. Like, how do you feel, I guess, now comparing to your 205-pound self? Because you definitely seem like younger in the cage at heavyweight.
Yeah. When I came back, when I was heavyweight for a while, and that was years, and then I was fighting Nemkov, which I lost. And COVID was just happening, all that. And I thought they told me I was going to fight Congo again. So I was heavyweight. And then I ended up tearing my knee pretty good, my MCL, almost completely. And I'm like, well, COVID was there. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get another fight. I let it heal for like 6, 7, 8 weeks. And they're about 4 weeks out. They're like, hey, we can get Nemkov in, go to light heavyweight. And my ego pride was like, yeah, hell yeah, I can make it, whatever. And probably wasn't the fight to do that. I went down there, felt absolutely terrible, and anyway, I'm like, all right, this is my first one back, and then I did it again. I beat Machida, and then I came back with Corey Anderson and cut weight again, and I just didn't feel like myself cutting that weight and going in there. I couldn't take the shots I can normally take, and getting older, and your body doesn't, I still think I'm 25, act like I'm 25 too, and then your body's like, whoa, I'm used to cutting weight. I've done this my whole life, but I didn't perform well. And so when I, all right, I'm at heavyweight now. There's no reason for me to go to light heavyweight. My body felt great. Most importantly, through camp, I was watching what I ate, had my little prepackaged meals, and never felt good through training. I didn't have enough fuel, then cut your water weight. And so for me, it was like, why? Before that, I had to defend the belt, and I couldn't pass the opportunity to do another Grand Prix. But at this point, I'm like, what is there for me at light heavyweight that there isn't there for heavyweight? So for me, it's kind of done with light heavyweight.
Yeah, Ryan, I wanted to ask you about that narrative because I've heard it multiple times now. It seems to be the narrative. Big John McCarthy said it when you were stepping in the cage against Czech Congo. I heard it on Morning Combat with Brian Campbell. The narrative is that Ryan Bader is too slow for light heavyweight and too fast for these heavyweights, and that when Ryan Bader moves up to heavyweight, he's got a speed advantage, and that's why he's able to dominate people. He doesn't have that in his 40s at light heavyweight. How do you respond to that narrative? Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of true, and I felt that in the last couple of fights at light heavyweight. I was kind of like, man, I feel like I am slow at light heavyweight, and that could be, that taking out all that water and all that kind of stuff too. But, I never really, I was coming up through my career, UFC, all that, Bellator. I've always wanted to try my hand at heavyweight, but I really didn't know how I would how I would do with bigger guys, and all that. That's always an unknown. I was, now I'm like, I'd be 240, outside of camp. But then I wasn't that big. And so when I got a chance to do that in that Grand Prix, the heavyweight Grand Prix, went out there and I fought a light heavyweight basically in King Mo. But then I fought Matt Mitrione, who's a big, fast heavyweight. And I was like, all right, I belong here. I'm fine. Just as strong, way faster. My cardio is the best in the heavyweight division. So, let's roll with it. But I still had, both belts. So I had to go back down. But it was just an unknown. And when I finally got in there and mixed it up with these heavyweights, I'm like, wow, I can be a really good heavyweight, So that was kind of like the turning point.
I like that, man. And it's interesting too, because I feel like with age, these fighters at heavyweight, especially, like, you can fight into the 40s. I mean, Arlovsky's still doing his thing.
Yeah, true.
Is he 43 now? Damn near 44. Beating guys. Granted, he's not top of the line. And I'll be honest, Ryan, I think you've taken out Arlovsky at this point. So let me ask you this. Is there a dream fight for you? Something that you're like, man, I want this before I call it a career?
Yeah, no, I think that would probably be Fedor. That was, obviously like a ton of us. We, idolized him coming up, watched him, big fan. And I just never thought it would ever be possible that we'd ever cross paths, and let alone I was a light heavyweight, he was a heavyweight. And then when it finally came to that Grand Prix, he was on the other side. I'm like, man, how cool would it be if I won and he won? And then, we're in the finals. It'd be nuts, and it happened, and then beating him and all that. One other guy that I thought for sure that I'd fight, was Shogun Hua.
Oh, wow.
I thought absolutely we're running across each other, and I was a big fan of his too, watching Pride and all that. So that's kind of one fight that I would say that, kind of eluded me in that I always wanted that fight.
Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Ryan Bader. Ryan, you keep calling out my neighbors, bro. Shogun's at King's MMA right now. Do you want me to hit him up?
What's that? Hit him up?
Should I hit him up? He's down the street. He's at King's MMA. Rafael Cordero's got him. You want to fight Shogun? Man, I think honestly, Ryan, I think that Fedor rematch is the biggest fight of your career. And this is why.
Yeah.
The first time you beat Fedor, it probably was, but to cement your legacy with 2 wins over the greatest heavyweight of all time, the most decorated heavyweight, let's say, of all time, it makes perfect sense. Ryan, I wonder why that fell apart. Obviously, the war in Ukraine made it so that, the Bellator, wasn't set up to go to Russia, but can't Fedor come to Arizona? Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it very well could have, now this is all hearsay and all that, but, I kind of heard like, nah, we don't want to do that to Fedor. We want to give him a good fight for him in Russia and have him go out like that. Like I said, all hearsay, but I was honestly expecting him to be in the cage, because you can go back to that fight and say, oh, it was a fluke. It was anytime somebody gets knocked out, it's always like, it's not like you went in there and dominated a guy for 25 minutes. You can be like, you can play that card with it, and so I don't know why. I really don't, and it was a big surprise to me, when I got the Congo fight after Moldavsky, because I thought that storyline was perfect. I have a win over him. His guy beat me. Then I beat his guy at heavyweight.
Exactly.
It sets it right up.
Exactly. The rival teams, right? The rival teams, Arizona versus Team Fedor. Look, I was there, obviously, when you beat Moldavsky. I thought that was an extremely impressive performance. I think you were the underdog coming into that fight.
Big underdog. He was like minus 350.
And you were able to give him a nice wrestling seminar, and it was damn entertaining fight, by the way, for the wrestling haters. A lot of people, they want to see you just bang. They just want to see you bite down on your mouthpiece, Ryan, and scrap with these guys. Ryan's got to be smart in there, guys. People want to play you like a video game character. People got to understand, when you're standing in there with Czech Congo, the best thing is not to throw hooks, right? The best thing is to use your attributes. But Ryan, let me touch on that fight, because I was sitting there with a phone in Czech Congo's face that whole time he was watching you fight. It seemed like that thing was already kind of in motion. Maybe Fedor didn't want it.
That perhaps, and you pick up on little cues and stuff, like you go in for your pre-fight interviews, and you know, you don't hear Fedor's name, but you hear like names like, tell me what you think about Czech Congo and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, huh, that's kind of different, whatever. And I'm wondering why they're asking that. But yeah, you know, and, you know, just kind of going back to that Moldavsky fight, you know, he kind of reversed that on me. He had me up on against the cage, you know, and I'm like, damn these boring wrestlers, you know. And then you know, and then I did that to Congo the whole time. But yeah, you know, it was one of those things where I thought for sure that was going to happen. But you know, for me, you know, champ, and obviously you can kind of like, hey, I'd love to fight this guy, whatever. But at the same time, it's not like there's nothing on the line, right? It's not like I don't have the title. I'm kind of like, hey, you think this is a good fight? You know, they're going to want to put somebody in there that they want in there, and because he potentially could be a champion.
Yeah,
Absolutely
man.
right.
I feel like now I have to jump to this question, and it's got to be about a former foe of yours. John Jones is talking about that heavyweight move. I'm curious if you think it's even going to happen, because we've been kind of just waiting, hearing, yeah, he's coming to heavyweight. We've been 2 years since we've seen him. And let's be honest, I thought Dominic Reyes could have got that decision in the last one, but like every fighter sometimes has a day where someone's going to get him. I'm not writing off John Jones ever yet. Do you feel like he actually makes the walk to heavyweight? And if he does, how does he fare against the heavyweights in the UFC?
I think he does. You know, I think it's like when you move a promotion or you move a weight class, it's like it's refreshing, right? And it's like new beginnings, and you have, you know, this fire back. You know, when he was fighting these light heavyweights, he probably got bored at that point, you know, and that's where a guy like Reyes kind of slips in there and be like, oh, this guy's a little better than I thought, you know, and you have a close fight like that. And like you said, it's MMA, you know, you can't always be your best every night, you know, you only get so many shots a year if only one, you know, and so I think he's going to be rejuvenated, refreshed. You know, he kind of sat out for a while, which maybe I would too, you know, and see how it shakes up, you know, and wait for Nagano to get out of there, you know. Maybe that was the plan.
He wanted Ngannou. Ryan, he was the one calling Francis out when he was a light heavyweight. You don't think John wants to fight Francis?
Yeah. So maybe he's like kind of looking at the heavyweight division, like, let's let it play out a little bit. And he's John Jones. Usually he can probably step in and you know, you hear like rumblings about him and Stipe and all that, which I think would be a good fight. But yeah, I think he's very skilled. And, you know, if he didn't lose that dexterity, that quickness, that length and all that at heavyweight, and he has all that, and plus the strength and the size now that he has and the wrestling, I think he's going to do really well. You know, Nagano's one of those guys where I'm like, ooh, that's a scary fight, you know, for him. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe John goes in there, takes him down, and stays on the outside. But yeah, I do hope to see him. You know, he's one. You know, regardless of his past and all that, you know, BS, he's one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter in the world.
Yeah, I want to see Jones back as well,
AJ. Man. It seems like his present, bro. It seems like John can't stay out of trouble, man.
Yeah, true.
That's great, man. I feel like John Jones has to give us one more, man. I want to see it. I'm curious to see. And seeing you prevail at heavyweight, I mean, becoming the champion in Bellator is nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's real shit. These are big motherfuckers, and you're taking them down and beating them up. Czech Congo, I don't know how he's still performing at 46 like he is. 46. Yeah. He looks like he's 30 years of old, shredded, jacked. He can step on a bodybuilding stage. The next question for you from me is going to be, how much longer do you kind of see the road? Like, is it, I want to keep going? Like, I have a long-term plan, or are you like thinking, okay, I have maybe, you know, 2 years? Like, is there a time frame or like an amount of fights you feel like you have left?
So I'll be 39 in a couple of weeks here. I still feel awesome. Birthday. I feel I could train like I train better than I did when I was in my early 20s, you know, all throughout, you know, where I am now. I'm smarter about it. You know, sometimes a little like injuries kind of stick with you a little more. But I don't want to be fighting into my 40s, deep into my 40s at all. You know, I signed a new 4-fight deal with Bellator. Congo was one of them. So on this deal, I have 3 fights left, you know, and it's going to be one of those things where for me, if you start thinking about retirement and like, oh, I got one more fight left, this and that, your foot's halfway out the door. And this is a game where you can't play that, you know? And so for me, I feel great. Like I said, I'll reevaluate after these 3 fights. But, you know, we'll see. I might be done after that, but after, or maybe I still have that fire and I want to do something, you know? But it's one of those things where I kind of leave that on the back burner and just kind of focus on the, you know, that next fight, you know, and I still have the belt. I'm performing at the top of my game. And so I would hate to leave anything on the table, you know. Obviously, you know, I want my health and all that, but, you know, in UFC, I was one of the least hit guys, you know, still kind of carried that out into Bellator, you know, didn't get hit once throughout that entire Grand Prix in the heavyweight division, you know.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where I know how I am, competitive, all that, you know, but I owe it to my family and all that, you know, everybody around me, you know, when it's enough, it's enough. But, and if I ever feel like I can't put in the work that needs to be done, it's a scary situation to walk into a cage with, you know, and so that'll be the day 100% I'm done. But we'll see. You know, like I said, I got 3 fights left right now. And right now I'm just focused on getting those 3 fights done, retaining the belt. And then it's kind of like, do I want to continue something? Do I want to do something different? You know, and then kind of leave it at that.
Let's go, man. I'm glad. I want to see you as many more times as I can, especially now after getting the chance to meet you. I do got a fan question from the chat that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was a really good one. And me and Mike had actually talked about it beforehand. Please ask the champ his questions. Open scoring in MMA. Would you be open to trying that in Bellator? What do you think about the open scoring debate? I know it's been talked about a lot, especially after the Holly Holm and Kevin Vieira fight this past weekend.
Well, kind of explain that to me so I know exactly what they mean.
So I guess with open scoring, it's going to be you after every round will now know the official 3 judges scorecards. So like first, second, or every round, you're going to get the exact scorecard. Your corner's going to know, the people watching are going to know, and most importantly, you'll know.
Yeah, I like that. I like it as a competitor for sure. You know, if I'm down, you know, 3-round fight and I'm down 2 rounds, it's balls to the wall. You got to go finish this fight. You know, it's no, you know, there's nothing up in the air. As a fan, I don't think I would want to know, you know. I think even though some of the decisions are bad and all that, you know, if you know, and they go to the end and you know they're calling it out, that's part of the fun. Yeah, you know, even if your guy lost or whatever it is, you know, that's like the climatic part, you know. But as a competitor, 100%, you know, I want my corner saying and being honest with me. Hey, it's close round. I don't know. Or, hey, you won that round. You're up, you know, 3 rounds to 0, 1 5-round fight. I want to know that. And if it was official, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I like that, man. I think that's a great competitor point right there. Like for you, it's going to be advantage. People on TV, maybe not. The suspense is a little bit lost, but also, I think the reason I feel like they're really going to have a hard time putting it into play is the live betting side. Like there's a huge amount of money into that. And when you have the official lines there, now things are going to change big time.
100%. I was about to touch on that a little bit.
That's what we do on this show, Ryan Bader. We talk about fights and what our predictions are. Ryan, you said you're a student of the game. You're training smarter now. I wonder, how much do you pay attention to the heavyweights and other organizations in the UFC? Are you watching every card like us, prelims to the top? Are you studying this game still?
Hell no. Yeah. I have, you know, MMA is such a big part of my life that I have to kind of like push it away a lot of times. When I was younger, man, I watched every fight, and now you get kind of desensitized to it, and you're in it all the time. And so when I'm training, I'm there, I'm training hard, and that's what I am, you know, fighter, you know, training for a fight, this and that. When I leave that door, leave that gym, I really don't like to think about MMA all that much. I've been doing this for a long time, since 2005, you know, and so for me, you know, it's just one of those things where if there's a big fight, interesting fight, I'll watch it. But you'd be surprised how little MMA I watch.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What does Ryan Bader got on the TV?
Man, just random shows on like Netflix, all that kind of stuff, you know. Kind of picky, so my wife kind of has the same taste, so we don't have to argue about it too much. But yeah, I don't watch a ton of TV just right before bed, and that's about it.
Neither do I. I don't even have cable, bro. I don't even pay for that shit. Just the internet is all I need. All you guys putting out, you know, content nonstop. For those who don't know, Ryan Bader has the funniest Instagram in the game. You guys got to check his Instagram stories out. It's a whole other level. I think I laughed back at one of yours today. But yeah, I don't know how many times I've screenshot your story and sent it to somebody else. So there's your
probably
entertainment.
why I'm getting banned. You can't even search me in my name in the search bar anymore. If you put like Ryan Space Bader, I don't even pull up.
Oh shit, they're giving you that. That shadow banning.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, fuck that shadow banning. We also got to shout out the guy Kaim in the chat right here.
Hey, what's up, Kaim?
Bader, let's go. Much love.
Shout out to Kaim. Kaim is the one who helped set this up. So we appreciate having you on, Ryan. Ryan, you're the man. I'm super excited to see these last 3 fights in Bellator. I am absolutely spoiled. I'll be there cage side. For those of you who want to tune in, see Ryan Bader fight. He's headlining cards on Showtime. We want to see you in there with a Russian. And the other 2 fights, brother, I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of these light heavyweights come up. Tell me if I'm crazy. Yoel Romero versus Ryan Bader's a fun fight, no?
Yeah, that is a fun fight.
Yeah,
that's a fun fight. Corey Anderson's a fun fight. Obviously, want to get that back. But yeah, there's a lot of if those guys want to come up, there's a lot of different options, you know. And I had a great time when I did that, so why not?
Let's go. And I wanted to see the JDS fight potentially because he tore his shoulder. That was the fight. It was he was
Bellator.
Dude, he had that fight. It was going to be Eagle FC Bellator. It was going to be him versus Fedor. And I was thinking, okay, if Junior pulls it out against Fedor, you and him, Bader versus
Bader.
Bader, I like that. Bader versus JDS. That's a hell of a fight, man. I hope that they can figure it out. We'll see though, because he tore his shoulder out, so I don't know exactly how much damage it did. But like he was winning that whole match, man. I was scoring it, watching it live.
Yeah,
he was up. He had it in the bag. And then the shoulder pops. And I mean, how great would it be to get a W over JDS too, former heavyweight champ?
It'd be huge. Yeah, you know me, I'm open to all these fights, you know, and the big fights, different fights, like to have fun, do different shit. We'll love it.
Let's go. You're the man, Ryan Bader. Thank you for coming
heavyweight
on,
player, man. Ryan Bader.
Let's go. Let's go. Listen, I'm still waiting for you to walk out for that other nickname, bro. You know the one we're talking about, man.
Dude, I'm trying.
Fingers crossed. One day we get it. You know.
Oh yeah.
Let's go. Waiting on it, Ryan Darth Bader. Although he doesn't like Star Wars, that's one of my favorite nicknames in MMA. Ryan, I gave your Instagram a shout out, but fans want to see what you're up to, man. How could they check out your training and keep up to date with you?
Yeah, probably just Instagram. I probably should do more on that, but just follow my stories. You'll see a lot in there.
A lot for sure. Ryan Darth Bader. God bless, man. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, boys.
See ya. My brother, Ryan Bader, the man who came in the house. We do have another guest ready to join us that we're going to bring in right now. Top reporter, Nolan King.
No lies on me.
Nolan King, what's up, my brother?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Doing good, Mr. King. Good to see you, my man. You still got that Hawaii tan going? What's going on, bro?
Oh, a little bit. If I had no shirt on, you'd see, which would be a sight for everyone. But I would have the farmer's tan. I don't know what you'd call it, the wife beater tan. So for you, luckily for all of us, I've got my sweatshirt on for good reason.
The wife beater, the technical term, the wife.
Yeah,
beater.
That's it right there.
That's great.
Yep,
that's great,
oh,
dude. That's funny. I got to tell you, man. I got to praise you for the work on Brennan Ward. I went through and I watched the article, I watched the documentary series, and I really like the in-depth look because I feel like fighters don't always get humanized, right? We think of them as these, guys on TV, and you don't think that they have their own problems going on and they're living their own lives, and there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in people's lives. And to see that in-depth look, but then the best part is the turnaround. And I think actually June 24th, if I'm not mistaken, Ward's coming back. He's fighting again. So you got me stoked for that next one for him.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you watching that. And, it was one of my favorite experiences, I think, so far since I've worked with MMA Junkie. we kind of had that in the works probably for 6 to 8 months before I wrote the story. And he hadn't told a lot of his relatives about, the stuff that he was going through. So, I dropped the story first, and then my man Kamikaze, Abby Subban, did an excellent job on the edit when, I went and filmed Brendan at Mohegan for that fight. So it was kind of a cool, before and after sort of, from the story to it actually materializing sort of thing. So we're trying to do a little bit more of that MMA Junkie, try to we have good access to these guys. So we're trying to take a little bit more advantage of it. And we got some more stuff like that coming out soon, but I appreciate that because it was something that I felt like it meant something to people, seeing some random rehab in Ohio share it on Facebook, stuff like that. So it was cool. And I know he appreciated it. And, it just seemed like it touched a lot of people. So it's nice to know sometimes writing about Jake Paul, writing about so-and-so called out so-and-so, that there are some things that we can do that might make a little bit of a difference.
Love that.
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
Love that.
Jake
I'm also a big MMA junkie guy. I mean, I'll be honest. I get my news from MMA Junkie, and I have been probably since I was 17, man. Maybe even before then, 16.
Me too.
So, yeah,
AJ, ditto on that, man. MMA Junkie's been my spot, That's been my
and
spot.
I mean, I've worked this. Is going to be coming up next month's my 3-year anniversary. And I was the same way though. Like I grew up reading this stuff. So it is kind of cool to see the legacy people built way before I started working there. Dan Stupp when he started at John Morgan, who left us recently, but he obviously did a big number on it. And then we got kind of the new generation, myself, Mike Bond, Farah Hanoun. So shout out to everybody. I think it's been a good generation over time building up the name and the brand, and everybody seems to know it, man. Even some of the fighters that don't speak English we talk to, at Bellator, CJ will say MMA Junkie, and they'll go, "Oh, MMA Junkie." They don't say any other English, but I know those 2 words from them. So it's cool, man. I appreciate that.
Dude, I was on the MMA Junkie radio show in like 2010 or some shit talking about, GSP was like fighting Matt Hughes. I don't know. I was going back and forth with Goes. So
yeah, I got to give them a shout out too. George and Goes recently, they've been with Junkie for a long time doing the kind of as a part-time position, and they recently got promoted to full-time. And I think there's not 2 guys that I've met who are nicer and more worthy and deserving than those 2. Those are some OGs right there.
Hell yeah. OGs for sure. And I wanted to put a bow on what AJ brought up there with Brennan Ward. I got to really dig into Brennan Ward's story when I interviewed him at that Bellator card, and it was real cool to see you backstage with him, just getting to be on the outside of that entire experience. How crazy was that place when he walked out and when he fought? I mean, he is really making an impact on people. It's got to be a tangible difference when you're writing such an impactful piece on a guy who almost died. I mean, listening to his story, man, it was similar to the type of effect that Tyson Fury, Joe Rogan Experience episode had on people, where people really got to dig into, the depths of the drug abuse and then see him come back and become world champ in boxing. A similar thing here. It was incredible when he fought that night. I mean, how loud was it in there, Nolan?
Yeah, it was loud, and it goes to show you kind of was full circle a little bit, I think, because, up here in New England, and the UFC came a couple of times, 2010 they came, in 2013, but largely most of the MMA I absorbed to go attend high, that level was Bellator in Connecticut. And so, I was one of the people sitting up in the crowd watching Brennan Ward fight, and I knew the reception, and I was like, man, this guy, it's like Conor McGregor showed up here, for these people. And it's just like he's so popular. So to see that he still had that after all these years and everything, and knowing what he went through, it was pretty cool, man. I think it meant a lot to him too.
Hell yeah. Hey. You're a New England guy. That's funny. I'm actually flying to Massachusetts tomorrow morning, man. I'm going to be there for 10 days.
Well, that's where I'm sitting right now. Yeah. Where
I heard the accent,
Boston?
Man. Yeah. So I was born in Weymouth, actually, man. I grew up until I was like 7. I moved to Florida, and that's where I live now. But all my fam's there on my mom's side, so I'm heading up for a bit, man. So I'll be doing an on the road show for a little while. But I'll be in New England, man. I'll be around Weymouth area. Where are you located over there?
I'm right outside Boston. I'm in Somerville these days, but I grew up about 20 minutes north of Boston on the North Shore in Reading. So, yeah, man, that's awesome. You're coming at a good time of year. We got some good weather here finally.
Let's go. I'm looking forward to the food, man, because it hits.
It does.
It hits.
AJ's coming from Florida, bro. He don't know about that cold weather,
man.
Yeah, you didn't have to do the tough part, but you still get to reap the reward. We got some nice weather here, so you'll enjoy it, man. You'll enjoy it.
Exactly. All right. We had a controversial decision last week. Nolan, just to start, because me and AJ are, where is he? He's over here. Me and AJ are at opposite ends of this. There we go. There we go. Me and AJ are at opposite ends of this one. Actually, we both have Holly Holm winning. He just thought it was a robbery. First off, what did you think of Holly Holm, Ketlin Vieira? And then going into the open scoring thing, is that the solution to these controversial decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess overall, I think it's kind of continued this trend of fights that are not necessarily the most exciting, but have seemed to get more conversation going than some of the more exciting main events. And you just hit it on the head as to why. And it's because of the scoring. So for me, I think the thing is, like, there's a couple, we could talk about open scoring forever and ever. And I think it's a very good topic for people to talk about. Clearly, there's a lot of opinions on it all of a sudden. I think that there are certain, I think overall, I honestly think judging in MMA isn't that bad. I think that there are very few times where I look at a fight and I'm like, that is blasphemy. That is terrible. And actually, I think a lot of the scorecards where I look at that and I say that's a terrible scorecard are on decisions that are scored properly with the split decision. So like people see, they're like, oh, how did that judge score this for whatever? And then nobody thinks about it because the right person still won. So I think that a lot of times we get those as well. Is open scoring the solution? I think it will solve some of the problems, but I also think that we're perhaps not seeing that it could create others. I'm personally, as a fan, I hate it because I think I've watched open scoring fights and it does suck some of the drama out of the whole thing. Like, I think those moments where it goes to the judge's decision and you're like, man, I literally have no idea how the judges scored 4 of these rounds. So I have no idea who's going to win. And you hear the words come out of Bruce Buffer's mouth. I think that is a huge part of the fan experience. Now,
that's what Ryan Bader just said, by the way.
Totally. And it's like, it's good to hear some fighters say that too, because I totally understand where they're coming from. Like I saw Andre Fili commented on a post that I was reading, talking about, well, why doesn't the concern is that a fighter might cruise late in the fight? Well, why hasn't that fighter earned that by doing well in the first couple rounds? And I respect it. I mean, I see every side of it. I just think from a fan's perspective, it's going to make it less entertaining. And I honestly think when it comes down to the whole, from a fighter's perspective, I think it's going to be kind of a wash. I think it's going to get rid of some of the problems that we have. It might, but I also think it will introduce some other problems when it does come to maybe coasting or whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is.
Stalling. Yeah, no, good point. 100%. And we got a lot of wrestlers in MMA. A wrestler knows how to stall. You go up by a couple points and these guys know how to make it look like they're doing something. I mean, that is like half the sport of wrestling. I mean, let's be honest, is professional stalling, like going up by a couple points and stalling. We don't want more of that in MMA.
Right. And I mean, the thought is right now, like if a fighter goes into the 5th round of a close fight, you'd like to think that they're giving it their all. Like you'd like to think like, there's not some extra magic button that they're going to press when they know they're down versus like when they assume they're down anyway, or that I just feel like, I don't know, Mike, obviously you've been in there, so you have a little bit more of an understanding of this, but I just think there's a lot being weighed in on these theoretical mental, debates on what a fighter would feel going into that last round. And I'm open to try it. Like, I think I'd be open to see it, but I just think if you're asking me right now, am I a fan of it? I would say no.
Yeah, if they're going to try it, I think start it maybe like some regional scene event, maybe pick it up.
Sure.
I don't know, CFFC, something like that. Try it out. But the thing is, then they try it out and then, and maybe it affects the outcome of fights. Like, I just feel like it's something that we're always going to talk about, but ends up never happening. Another concern is the live betting side, which a lot of people bet live. And now if you have the scorecards in front of you live now, the live betting kind of loses it. If it's a 3rd round, it's a close fight, but for certain this person's winning. Now it's okay. The only chance is by finish. You're probably not going to throw down. So I think that could be, I don't know, a blurry situation that I don't know. I don't personally like open scoring for the fact of the fan interest side, the live betting side. I do really like live betting personally.
and I think
a live bet, like you're like, so for instance, if you were watching Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva, Chael takes him down in the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. The live betting odds must have just been ridiculous. Like, are you jumping in on the guy who's winning the fight? Is that your idea there, AJ?
You're probably not on that one because you're probably looking at like minus 2,000. So if you're like, I believe in Silva always, I'm doubling down, and then you cash.
That
big.
Makes sense.
It's a good dog attack. Like I think a lot of times you can hit some dogs. I hit on Viviana Rujao in a fight that I actually thought she was up, and they had her at plus money. I said, let's go, let's jump in.
Let me tell you guys one of my favorite things about the sport of mixed martial arts. Are you a Patriots fan? I assume being over there on the winning
We're
winning
Celtics
Browns
fans this
there.
right about now, but yes, I'm a Patriots fan as well. Yeah.
So in football, you could be up 40-0 and it might be the fourth quarter. I can't come back. You know what I'm saying? In the NFL, you're not coming back from that. If it's the 2-minute warning and I'm down by 3 touchdowns, game's over. Like I'm not coming back. Versus in mixed martial arts, at any moment you could win that fight by knockout or submission. Doesn't that make this one of the most exciting things to watch? Because at any moment it's always on the line. Let's be honest. Ryan Bader versus Czech Congo, not the greatest fight we've ever seen, but at least going into that 5th round, if Czech throws a cross hook, this thing could be a wrap. That's what kind of makes MMA exciting. Would you agree with that assessment, Nolan?
Oh, totally. I mean, you look at some of these fights that we've seen over time, the ones that get people invested, and it's not, expect the unexpected, and I think that's a big aspect of it. There's no instant win in basketball. There's no, if you hit a shot from 75% of the way down the court, you can win the whole game. So yeah, I think it's absolutely a huge factor into what ultimately makes people interested. And I mean, there's a number of those unexpected aspects, upsets, things that aren't supposed to happen, and come from behind victories are one of them. So you hit it on the head, Mike. I think that's a big part of it here.
I love this sport, bro. I love this sport. One thing that's always interesting to talk to a real journalist about is like, the overall landscape of the sport. What are the great things and what are the problems, right? So over the next decade here, Nolan, what are the, let me lay a little framework. MMA is different. You've got the UFC and Bellator and ONE FC and Eagle FC, and you've got these competing promotions. It's not quite like the NFL or the NBA, where it's very obvious that there's one league. What do you see over the next 10 years here as far as the sport goes? Do you think the athletes will keep making more money, that this thing's going to keep getting bigger? Because when I started watching in 7th grade, I had the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 t-shirt on, and my teachers would be like, what is that? And I would tell them, well, it's the sport where they put these little gloves on and it's a real fight. They're like, how do you know it's real? It's like, oh shit. We've gone from those days to now I'm at the gas station. It's up on ESPN on the screen. We've gone to a whole other level. Will the trajectory continue?
It's funny. I thought we were stalling a little bit a few years ago. And right after the Conor McGregor loss and the Ronda Rousey loss, I mean, I remember I would go on podcasts or talk to some other, people in my regular life, and they'd be like, well, where do they go now that they don't have Conor or Ronda or whatever? We need a big star. We need a big name. We need somebody that's going to be mega. And at the time, I felt like it kind of took a step back. But during the pandemic, man, I mean, the UFC's brand as a whole has exploded to a point that I thought it would be years down the line that it would get this big. I mean, obviously, we've seen some of the business reports that have come out recently, and WME is very happy with what's going on. The UFC's breaking all their records. They're doing great. They go to these arenas. They sell out in 2 seconds now because fans are deprived. So I think they're kind of ahead of schedule to a certain degree. And with that, I think that we've started to see you mentioned the fighter pay thing. I think fighters are starting to get aggravated. For a while there, it was like, oh, it's just media that are portraying this as whatever, this, that, and the other. But I think when you start to see that the business side of it is booming, and some of these fighters are starting to see that as well. I think when you talk about what issues do I think will arise, I think that we're going to start to see more and more fighters get in sort of these spats like Jorge Masvidal did, like Francis Ngannou did recently. I think that's possibly something that we could see. But I think the brand as a whole, it's getting to the point where they can just throw a card on TV and say UFC, and people watch, and it does good numbers, and ESPN's happy, and they want more of it. So I think that the demand for MMA, whether it was just because it was the only sport on for a while and they just picked up viewers, they picked up new people that had never watched it, like, well, this is on, I'll watch it. And then they get hooked. Whatever it was, whatever the recipe was, it's working. And I think that the brand itself has exploded to become kind of whether you like it or not, is a star within itself.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
3 letters.
Yeah, UFC. That's the supreme, man. Funny, we have an interesting fan question that just caught my eye that I want to talk about, and just I'll ask all of you guys, and I'll give my take too. What do you guys think of the possibility of MMA as an Olympic sport? Just because we're talking about how much of a boom we've seen, could we ever see martial arts in the Olympics, like something that they say is the pinnacle of amateur sport or sport in general?
Nolan first. Go ahead, Nolan.
I think we could. It would take a little more globalization. My understanding is that they have to have a certain amount of countries that have a committee Olympic committee or something. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but Olympic committee to pitch this idea or whatever. They have to get a certain number of countries on board with it before it can go and be up for approval to become an Olympic sport. And I think that we're starting to near that point where the globalization we're starting to see with Africa, obviously, UFC is venturing into all over. I mean, I think we're hitting the point where they're kind of been everywhere. So once they hit Africa, they'll have been into every, continent except Antarctica or whatever. And so, I think we're getting to that point. It's just a matter of getting more countries on board, more, those superstars like Brandon Moreno, those Conor McGregors, those guys that really inspire a generation to partake, I think will be ultimately what drives us. And we could see it. I'm not an expert. I can't tell you, if the however many sports they're supposed to have and they have to vote out, synchronized swimming. I don't know how that whole thing works, but I think to get to that point where it can be talked about, I think is certainly a reality that could happen in the next, couple of, say next 20 years.
Not synchronized swimming, Nolan. We can't lose synchronized swimming. You're gonna cough up synchronized.
That was shots fired. I knew how passionate you were about that. So, yeah.
I think MMA is a tough one for the Olympics, AJ. I think MMA is not a perfect fit for the Olympics. First off, the idea of mixed martial arts is to have a true fight, right? And what the Olympics will automatically do is say you can't elbow them in the head, and we don't want too much blood and too many lacerations. I mean, look at the difference between Olympic boxing and actual boxing, Right. Olympic boxing with the headgear and the point system and some bullshit.
They took the headgear off now. They did take the headgear off.
My mistake? New thing.
I think they might have took it off the year that I watched. I think it was 2016. They took it off, and they did change the point system. Now they do use more, I believe, a 10-point must system. But I will say, decisions sometimes are very weird in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm looking. I remember it was Tony Yoka, Joe Joyce, and I was shocked at the result. They gave it to Tony Yoka, and he got the gold. But I thought Joe Joyce clearly had it. So that's a concern. And then it's just, like if you limit the fighters' arsenals. So now what are we doing? 3-minute rounds, 5 3-minute rounds. So it's amateur MMA style, 3 3-minute rounds. Is it okay? You can't elbow, you can't knee to the head. Well, what are these rules? So now it changes the game. Now we have a limited MMA. Yeah, I definitely think that's something that's going to hold it back. I think the violence, that karate fight, right? In the Olympics. Do you remember that karate fight? That guy landed a beautiful. I don't remember the exact.
Yeah, it was a knockout, and he lost.
Out cold, and he lost. He lost the gold medal.
What are we doing here?
Right. So right. I don't know, man. Maybe the Olympics is like.
I almost feel like
somebody wake that guy up. Tell him he won.
It would have to be like if you guys have ever seen like the MMAF, World Championships. Kind of the amateur stuff with the gear, and I'm guessing it would have to be kind of like that. Maybe the cage fighting MMA that we love. That might be not something that, I think you guys just touched on it, but.
Which is why I think the next thing up is jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, submission only would be sweet, but some level of jiu-jitsu should be in the Olympics. I think that leads this dance first. I think they're going to be all about it. Jiu-jitsu has a very final end too. You could also choke people. They tap out. No need for judges. We like that. The more you, nerf MMA, the more it's just going to go to scorecards and you're going to get bad decisions. So we like when we don't have to have a judge. I think jiu-jitsu is a really good one and it'll fit much better in with the Olympics. As far as, being in fist fights, I think it's better for these guys to turn pro and make money anyway, especially since the trajectory the sport's going on. I'm sure you guys are aware, but Anderson Silva used to work at McDonald's. George St. Pierre used to be a garbage man. They came to the sport and became multi-millionaires because of their talents. And that's only going to continue. I think the first thing that should go in the Olympics, jiu-jitsu. Am I crazy?
No, I agree.
No, I think it fits really well. I mean, look at the combination. Look at the recipe it's been with wrestling, right? Obviously, that goes hand in hand. And we see these grappling tournaments. When I used to work for Flow Combat, we were kind of, to peel back the curtain a little bit, Flow Combat, for people that don't know, is not really something that exists that much anymore. But it was kind of like UFC Fight Pass with the regional shows before UFC Fight Pass existed. We were under an umbrella that was Flow Wrestling, Flow Combat, and Flow Grappling. And we got funding, I think, from the same pool, so to speak. And Flow Wrestling and Flow Grappling killed it. People are interested in it. People are, but they don't really, I think, have that. For wrestling, they have the Olympics. For grappling, they have these tournaments that people are invested in, but I don't think it holds the same regard as like hey, this guy's going out for a gold medal. He's going out for Olympic trials. So I think it would fit that mold perfectly. I think you nailed it on the head there, Mike.
Yeah.
There we go. Hire me, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get jiu-jitsu. I want to be on the committee. Let's get it in the Olympics, because you know what? There are a lot of bad mofos around the world getting good at jiu-jitsu. It's not just Brazil and the US. It's on the rise, and you'll have some real awesome international competition. Wouldn't it be nice to let Gordon Ryan go for an Olympic gold? I think that's what these guys deserve at this point.
Yeah, I'm in on that, bro. I'm 100%. And funny, bro, we got a question from the Mystic Mac himself, Billy Barnes, producer of the show. Please ask Nolan if he has seen the new hockey fight boxing promotion and what are his thoughts on it.
I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I did see it. Fight TV actually had a little pay-per-view thing that was $10 or something. It was interesting, man. I think there's a certain technique. Definitely these guys were not MMA fighters that they brought in to try to do it on skates, because I think that would have been a disaster. I think these were guys that were probably semi-pro hockey players, 10 years past their prime, that knew how to fight on skates. So it was kind of awesome. The technique, a certain technique that goes involved, anybody that's watched hockey, they grab the jerseys and stuff. And so it was fun. It was definitely one of those. We're hitting the point with some combat sports where I think it's just mindless brain damage, the slap fighting thing, where I'm just this is just maybe where I draw the line of my level of entertainment. So this was kind of like that, but I also like hockey fights, and that's kind of what got me into hockey a little bit. So I'll cut them some slack. I approve. It gets the stamp of approval.
Thumbs up. Thumbs
Yeah.
up.
Wow.
It's mindless. It's mindless brain damage, but it's my mindless brain damage.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I feel like hockey fighting's been limited nowadays. They break it up quicker.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I understand they wanted to get rid of the kind of the staged fights, they call them. Two guys that don't really play well and they just drop the gloves. But it also has kind of eradicated the moments where somebody would be sticking up for their teammate and things would get really emotional because somebody can't skate in from the blue line after the whistle, and if they grab somebody first, they'll get kicked out of the game or something. So we'll go when Billy starts his hockey podcast. The four of us will hop on there, and I'll give you a whole diatribe about hockey fights.
Only reason I'm going to a hockey game is so I could see some fights. All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see some fights on ice skates. That shit's entertaining to me.
Dude, I think it was 2011. I remember there was a hockey fight at the Lightning game I went to. They were throwing down, and I feel like recently they've gone a little bit more strict, which I get it, I guess, for the sport side, but I like the fighting, man. I like the fighting.
Yeah. You and everyone else.
That's it.
Yeah.
Man. We need the fights, man. We need them.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why we're in this sport. I think the most entertaining thing at the end of the day, if we're going to have some sort of competition, Nolan, I'm not going to be like, F you, let's go play a baseball game. F you, let's go do some tennis. No, we're going to duke it out. We're going to fight, right? This is the ultimate form of competition.
Yep.
1000%.
It's not if two humans are going to compete in something, it's maybe a race, like a foot race, but I think fighting is the number one way, and the true sport of fighting is mixed martial arts. I think that tends to get lost with especially newer MMA fans, I like boxing, I like MMA. The important thing to understand about MMA is this is as close to a true fight as we can get. I mean, maybe that's a good one to ask you about, Nolan. Knees on the ground, soccer kicks. There are some things that were really fun about Pride FC. I don't know how much of a Pride fan you were. For me, certainly, I loved watching, Vanderlei Silva try to jump on people's heads. Now, it's tough. It's tough to watch, but I don't know of any serious injuries with that stuff happening. I mean, do you think the rules in MMA are correct? This modern rule set where I have to, if somebody puts their hand down, they're a downed opponent. We see some games being played here. To me, as a purist, I want to see the closest thing to a real fight. Is that what we're getting?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly room again for this sort of trial period. I'm guessing it'll have to be tried out. We've seen it though, obviously, with this sort of thing we've seen in Japan and other places, like you said. So maybe less of a feeling out process of what it would look like, but more. I think a big thing that people are overlooking, both when it comes to the scoring and with this, is you would have to have promotions that would adopt these rules or adopt the scoring system too. Commission can allow it. They can say, yeah, you guys can do this, or this. Right. But I don't think that it would any of these things would ever be mandated. So to bring up open scoring with your betting from a minute ago, I don't think Dana White's betting partners in the UFC would love to eliminate live betting. So I think you're probably safe from that for at least a little while, even if open scoring goes in. But to answer your question about the purest form of combat, I mean, for sure, I think a lot of the fighters we talk to, like when we talk about head kicks and soccer kicks and all that stuff, are like, man, you know, I would love to do that. I'd love to be able to knee people in the head. So I think they're doing a good job of at least eliminating some of the stupider rules with the hands and everything. And I'd like to see 12-6 elbows go out the window as well. I think that's kind of dumb. So we'll get those things out first, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I think maybe stomps will be a little bit harder for them to at least, you know, throw in right off the bat. But I think that there's room for improvement. And maybe Dana White will warm up once he sees some of the highlight knockouts that will go on ESPN.
I've had the pleasure of training with the Muay Thai legend Rafael Cordero, and he's been able to just spend a little bit of time coaching me at King's MMA. And he told me he wants to see the knee stomps, the side kicks to the knees. He wants that to be illegal. He does not think that is a good thing for the athletes long term. Have you ever heard anybody else want that? And is he crazy to ask that this side kick to the knee that John Jones employs a lot, you know? And by the way, I was asking Cyril Gane to throw against Francis Ngannou. I don't think he threw one, but that would have been the obvious strike against Francis, especially now that we know he had a knee injury and that Cyril knew about the knee injury. Anyway, the side kick to the knee. What are your thoughts?
I think it's fair. I mean, it seems like there was always an unwritten rule from back in the day that you wouldn't do that. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things, right? Like if it's so bad, why isn't there a rule written down about it? You know? So for me, I just look at it as kind of an unfortunate Achilles heel that people have. But I mean, how many times in high level MMA have we seen somebody get severely injured from that? And I think it's pretty low. I think if you have good defense for it, sure, it can be annoying. Sure, it can cause some injury, but I mean, I can think of one. Khalil Roundtree hit one recently against Modestas Bukauskas, and that was brutal. That was probably the worst one I've seen. That sticks out in my brain. What is it? Hit me.
Rampage said he'll never walk the same again. Some quote like that after fighting John Jones. Rampage said, first off, every time he tried to close the distance on John, he just got like fingers in his eyes. So he's like trying to like squint his eyes to close the distance. And then he's getting his knees just stomped back the whole fight. He's like, I forget the exact quote, but I think it's, I'll never walk the same again. You know, AJ, is Rafael Cordero nuts for wanting to ban the knees? You guys know what I'm going to say. Let it go. Let him fight. What do you think?
Listen, Mike, we talk about MMA being like the closest thing to a real fight, at least with the gentleman's rules. How many things are we going to take out? You know, at the end of the day, we already don't have the knees to the head. We don't have the 12-6 elbow. Like, I mean, we have knees to the head standing, but no, like you can put your hand down and now you're safe. And then in every other state, they have a different rule. You got a 2-hand rule. I don't know. I feel like the more you limit now, you limit the aspect that we love, which is the real fight. Who is the baddest? And just, you're going to find out when the cage door closes. And I personally like all the options. I like to see it all. I feel like I'd be very interested to see Vale Tudo style. 1 30-minute round, elbows, knees, punches, stomps, whatever works. Just, I mean, I don't think it's going to be top tier MMA, but like if there was a league that was more on that BKFC style app side, they said we're doing Vale Tudo and maybe somebody gets behind it. Like it could be fun to at least see what would happen. I'm curious. I don't know about bare knuckle MMA though, because I feel like the reason the gloves were invented, you know, 100 or so years ago in boxing is to prevent the lacerations. You know, BKFC, as fun as it is to watch, like, dude, can you have 40 bare knuckle fights? Most likely not. And also something that differs from the original bare knuckle boxing that you saw in the 1800s to now is the clinch. BKFC allows clinch. So now I can uppercut, lock you in this position here, and I'm just ripping shots. I feel like now you're really risking getting cut the hell up, man. Headbutting is an issue there. Like, I know what happens in boxing too, but you have the risk of the punch, the headbutt. I don't know, man. I like gloves. That's my biggest thing, is keep the gloves on them. Like, we can do Vale Tudo, but keep the gloves on them.
I agree. I agree 100%, man. I think that the gloves, like you saw Tank Abbott start wearing them, it's also for your hands, AJ. It's also so you don't break your hands, man. So yeah, they're a big, important piece of being able to punch really hard. You know, in boxing back in the day, they used to make everybody wear red gloves, remember? Because if I slip or something, I could see that red glove over here. Well, believe it or not, that little black UFC glove, that's a lot harder to see coming, ladies and gentlemen. They set that sport up for knockouts, all right? It's not made for defense. That is made for offense. I could punch a lot harder with that little glove on. I got my wrist wrapped. I got a freaking, stone right here I get to hit somebody in the head with. So, when you start taking the gloves off, I guarantee you'll see more Nick Diaz slaps and shit with the gloves off in MMA. It's not, it actually helps punching power. It helps you develop kinetic energy behind a real weapon when you're able to ball your fist up in a glove. All right, we've got Mr. MMA Junkie on, so I got to ask, because, you see the clicks and you understand who's got wind here. You mentioned, Ronda Rousey changed the sport. Conor McGregor obviously set the bar at a high level. The sport's going like this. Will Khamzat Chimaev be that type of a star?
It's tough for us to measure, and I'll tell you why. Because I think if you look at somebody like Khabib, I think he's got big drawing power. We can see it, but we don't estimate the amount of power he has all over the world, right? I mean, with Chimaev obviously coming from he's from Sweden or whatever, but he's got the background and the ties to Russia. He's got a lot going in that department. So I think that we underestimate Khabib's star power in the sphere. I mean, you look at Conor. We think about Conor and how much of a megastar he is. If you're going Instagram follower for Instagram follower, Khabib's not that far away. And here in the States, we recognize what an icon Conor is. So you think about in Russia largely how popular he is. So it's hard for us to sometimes with these international guys to really grasp it. But obviously, no matter what he says, he does every time he fights from the start, from the immediate first time we ever laid eyes on him, people have been interested. They've been hooked. So I'm not sure I'm willing to say he could be a Conor or a Ronda, but I think he could be himself. And that would be something that would be within an arm's reach of that.
Let's go. I'm a big
that's AJ's favorite fighter. He's not going to be Conor or Ronda. You heard it here, bro.
No, he's going to be Khamzat Chimaev, brother. He's going to be the best ever, brother.
It's pretty good.
Hey, listen, bro. That's my signature go-to, bro. Is the Khamzat accent on the channel, man.
I love it.
He did the whole Khamzat look, Nolan. He grew.
Dude, no, I shaved my mustache for the fight when Khamzat took the hat off.
Yeah, you just got to get the scar now. You got to get the scar.
I was thinking about getting a razor blade and just taking my losses, but I chickened out.
That would get some clicks. That would get some clicks on. Talking about clicks. There you go.
Self-mutilation. We'll do whatever we can for the clicks, guys. Come through. You mentioned like his number of Instagram followers. Tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like it's an overrated stat. Like, oh, they have so many Instagram. That means they're more popular. I feel like it's an overrated stat. Like, I think that internationally, there's so much that Khamzat could do as far as becoming a star. It's just, do you see anybody else, Nolan? Like, it will in the next 2 or 3 years here, will we have that type of superstar shit we had with Conor, where people were finding out about the sport for the first time? Nolan, Conor was doing interviews on, to bring it back to football on the NFL games, and they were playing all this stuff. Like the UFC, first off, really jumped in deep and really promoted him. Is that what we're about to see? Is there somebody else in the shadows who's about to emerge that Nolan might have his finger on? What type of superstars do we have in the sport?
It's really tough because I think there's a lot of guys that can do the right things, and we call it the it factor, right? And a lot of times that it factor becomes very evident quickly, like with Chimaev, and all of a sudden it's just boom, 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 boom up the ladder. How quick and how far can we go quick? So, I mean, right now, I look at a lot of guys in these divisions that I think will be very popular if they do the right things. I mean, you look at like Yuri in the light heavyweight division. He's funky. He does all this stuff. He's got the weird Instagram. You look at Tai Tuivasa. I mean, who doesn't like to drink beers once in a while? And kind of, everybody can relate to him and the way he operates. It's really tough for me to say that anybody else would be to Chimaev's level. I think he's kind of the guy we've been sitting around waiting for this whole time. I think... Again, if Francis had gone out there and beat Stipe the first time and not had that Derek fight, I think we could have had that kind of rocket ship trajectory as an African, representative and a beast and scary and all that stuff. But having seen him lose a couple times and have, not great fights, or at least in terms of entertainment, I think kind of limited his ceiling a little bit in terms of his popularity, not his scale, but just his popularity. So again, I think it just goes to show you how difficult it is to get to that star level. So I would say Chimaev is that guy right now.
Makes my day to hear that, man. Makes my day to hear that. That I'm happy to hear it. I feel like also like Adesanya, I guess, is kind of a star at this point. They're pushing him to be a star. But interesting thing is like, his fights lately haven't had that same oomph that like you saw with like, you know, the come up or the Paulo Costa fight. So I feel like the fan appeal sometimes is down. You know, you'll read negative things about him. People don't really love the style necessarily, but he fights Jared Cannonier. And he said violence is on the way. Like he thinks he's going to destroy Cannonier. So I'm excited to see what happens there. And that card is stacked. Like it's overly stacked though. Like I think it's too good. Those prelims, I'm like, save me one of those for a fight night. Like we
Totally.
need it. We need it. Like I don't know. Like you see it all the time too. It's like they stack the hell out of the pay-per-view, but they'll give us like really like a subpar fight night. And it's not like it's not good fights. I enjoy every cage fight that I watch. But I really wish you could save some of those names for a fight night card, throw it in the co-main event slot, even a featured bout of the night. It's like, you know, a couple cards back, we're having contender series guys making their debut fighting in the co-main event, which is kind of crazy to think in your debut, you're fighting in a co-main, unless you're like, you know, I guess like the star, like the stardom of like a Hamzat or somebody like that, like a McGregor type stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to me, just overall, I think there's just too many events would be kind of my thing. And like, it's not to knock. I mean, you know, everybody's, well, you know, you get paid to write about fights and you're complaining about, you know, no, I just think like, I remember when I first started watching the sport and we got, you know, one fight night and one pay-per-view a month or whatever it was, like those pay-per-views that I would sit around and wait sometimes 5 weeks or 4 weeks, and, you know, to watch, and there's some title fight and I'm friggin' checking online, I see the poster every day. Like it builds some certain anticipation and it feels so big. And now obviously the UFC does stack the hell out of these pay-per-views where you're like, man, that is, nobody else can do this. You know what I mean? This is special shit that we're watching. At the same time, there's a lot of times it's just so fast and furious that there's no like anticipation. We can't even come up for air sometimes. And I think just too many events, you know what I mean? That would be my biggest thing. And I think the Apex, like, just makes everything blend together. Like a lot of times in my brain, I think, oh, I remember that crowd and, you know, so-and-so knocked out so-and-so in Columbus or wherever. And so I think it just kind of becomes monotonous and people kind of blend in. And, you know, I just would like to see them maybe knock off a couple of cards a year. I'm not asking for anything crazy. Maybe do 3 less fight nights and take, you know, distribute the talent a little bit better. Cause I totally agree with you, man. It seems like 2 different products at times.
Yeah, I think so, man. And the Apex thing, I love that you brought that up. Yeah. I feel like we used it as a tool that worked so well during a time that it was necessary. But now, okay, are we concerned? I think so. We're concerned about maybe not selling out an arena. What's wrong with getting an arena that's maybe a little bit smaller? I mean, by me, you got like a USF Sundome. It's still going to have a few thousand people in there. But now the UFC has that product, that name, that brand that they need to sell out a Madison Square Garden type event. They're not going to do it at, you know, like they did. What was it? The Hard Rock, or was it the Red Rock back in the day?
Yeah, the Hard Rock.
You know, Hard Rock.
Yeah, the like, Red Rock. Yeah.
Give us something. I don't know. Just give us a crowd. I want the crowds back full time. I have fun at the Apex and I like hearing it, but I watch the Ultimate Fighter every week. I always watch the Contender Series. So like I get my fix of that, you know, silent MMA fight. I think now's the time that we keep it full time in the crowd. You know, we need people.
Is that the UFC's fault or is that COVID's fault? Like, I wonder how much of it is really they're restricted to be able to travel, and how much of it is that's in Dana's backyard, so they like doing the convenient fights at the Apex. Do you have your finger on that pulse, Nolan? Do you think that there's significant problems with doing events elsewhere just because these COVID restrictions are still holding them back? Is that what they're saying?
I think that, so it was interesting, right? I think there was a period of time where we started to kind of get back into the idea that, hey, like the UFC's starting to come back. They're starting to hold events in front of fans. They went to Jacksonville. They went to Phoenix. They went to, or Glendale, or wherever they went in Arizona. And so people started to ask Dana, you know, you're going to travel. And at the time, things were starting to close down again. And he said, oh, no, this restrictions are getting hard. And the visa issues became a problem again for Brazilians and people from Europe and Russia, whatever. Now we're at the point where I don't think that those obstacles really exist to 95% of the roster or 95% of the places that they would want to go. So I think right now it's just what's convenient for the UFC. I think they like being able to have everybody roll out of bed, do their thing. The people that work there go to the same place. It's like a home, working from home every day essentially for these people. So I think we're going to start to see them open up a little bit more. This summer schedule with Long Island, with Utah, Salt Lake City, and some other things they have in the works. I've heard Kansas City potentially is in the mix as well. I think you're going to start to see at least maybe more of a 50-50 split, but it's something that I think we ask Dana White the same question so often, and then we get sick of asking. And then when the time comes to maybe ask that question again, we kind of forget about it. So I'd like somebody to ask him that, honestly, man, what the plan is, because really right now, I think it's on them. I think it's their doing that they're not going to these arenas with fans.
There it is. Yeah. There it is. Yeah, they seem. What me and AJ said is they seem comfortable at the Apex.
Yeah,
it just seems comfortable.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which I don't blame him. I mean, Dana White, he wakes up in the morning, he's right there. Let's go watch some fist fights. Let me get my coffee. I got to work out in the gym. Like, he's enjoying life at the Apex, but I want more.
Ariel Helwani brought that up. He was asking, who did he ask? He said, who's the best promoter? And the guest said Dana White. And of course, Ariel debated that. Ariel said, Dana sort of has already done it. He already won the race. He's sitting there with his gold medal. He already sort of did it in the past. And that nowadays, the best promoter is Eddie Hearn because of the stuff he's cooking up and the way he's bringing Jake Paul and he's doing this and that. He's making business happen. Nolan, do you think, let me just ask you flat out, who is the best promoter in combat sports in 2022?
It's tough for me to say because honestly, I don't follow boxing as closely as the other ones. And I do know Eddie Hearn. I do, as a fan, from what I've seen of him, I do get drawn to him. Like, I like listening to him talk. I kind of like the line he toes of being a business guy, but then also having like a normal layman's term conversation with people. So, I mean, it's tough to tell. Obviously, the UFC killed it last year. So if we're talking about MMA promoters, it's hard for me to think that it's not Dana White. We talked about this, the brand has exploded. And so obviously he's doing his job in that regard properly. I'm sure there's things that he could do better. I think some of his criticisms of, anytime we ask him a real question, he seems to turn it around on us, stuff like that, I think is not necessarily, it shows some flaws, I think, in the greater picture. But yeah, man, it's tough for me to go any other direction. PFL, Don Davis, I think, is doing a nice job now promoting with them a little bit more. He's not obviously as familiar with combat sports, but he's somebody that, can go. I saw him on some, I don't know if it was Fox Business or something the other day talking. So, and then Scott Coker, obviously, he's doing his thing. I think he needs things have maybe gotten a little monotonous with Bellator at times. I think maybe he used to kind of bring those new ideas to the game, the kickboxing crossover, cross promotions.
Yeah,
maybe if he does the
creative,
thing,
true.
If he does the thing with Habib, with Eagle FC, maybe that will be the next step for them. But
Nolan, it sounded like he started opening up to maybe doing a Cyborg versus Kayla Harrison fight. In the beginning, Scott was like, shoot that thing down, but it seems now maybe.
Yeah, I think honestly what it comes down to is like, I think that Bellator thinks PFL's bluffing a little bit, where the PFL knows that it's never going to happen, but they continue to throw Bellator's name out there. So I think Coker, in his very cokery way, is saying, fine, bring it, let's do it. And he knows that it's not going to happen. I think Eagle FC, I think it really comes down to streaming deals, and that's really what it's about. The reason they've done Ryzen, the reason they've done Glory is because there's not any sort of conflict with what they're trying to do with either side. So I think with Eagle and it being on an FL or FLX cast or whatever the streaming service is, I think isn't necessarily a threat to Bellator. It's not a competitor. It's kind of its own thing. And maybe that's where they could find middle ground and actually do probably the most high profile cross promotion that they've done.
So Nolan's a good guy to ask because this is the thing I've gotten the most hate for, Nolan. The most hate I've ever gotten is by me hyping these Bellator light heavyweights. So you tell me from the outside, Bellator's got Yoel Romero, Phil Davis at the top of the division. Obviously, we saw that crazy fight with Corey Overtime Anderson and Vadim Nemkov. How do these light heavyweights match up to the UFC light heavyweights? Am I out of my mind for saying that Corey Anderson seems to be the best light heavyweight in the world?
I think Corey Anderson has the best claim that a Bellator fighter has had, maybe outside of either AJ or Pitbull when it comes to where they stand in the world. But AJ or Pitbull a couple years ago, before both of them lost once. But Corey Anderson, I think, has a claim there. I mean, not only does no MMA math doesn't add up, but he dominated Glover, and I think you could make a real case that he's at the best that he's been in his career. I'm talking about like what we see from him in the cage, regardless of opponent. I think he has proven to be at the peak of his career. Look at where he was when he was in the UFC and he left. I mean, he was like number 3 or something. So even if you were to go on that scale, I mean, I think him against anybody in the UFC, he could win. And maybe most of those, if not all of them, he could be favored as well. So I think that's a very legitimate guy that when we talk about pound for pound in the world is being overlooked. And I think it's because a lot of times people have that mentality of, oh, somebody left the UFC. There's no way they could be a champion. There's no way. But I think I think he's made the most legitimate claim that anybody's ever. He's made his spot in that conversation stronger, that argument, than anyone else.
100%. I think that, and obviously as the win over the UFC light heavyweight champion. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, get off my case. You heard it here. Nolan's got my back. So get off my case. I'm not nuts. These light heavyweights, the two divisions, man, very comparable. Bellator might even be a little deeper. I think the light heavyweight division in Bellator, it seems, at least by name value, I mean, go all the way down to Machida and some of the older fighters. I know they're at the end of the career, but name value-wise, Bellator is deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it as like, I think Bellator, the UFC has a larger roster, right? So I think that their depth, like when you look at the bottom half of the division, is probably better. Sure. I think Bellator, some of the guys that they bring in sometimes for like B-sides and stuff, like, okay, I can't really compare those to the UFC. But I think in terms of like the top 10 and stuff, I think there's less of a gap than people think for sure. And like I said, I think that the champion, Corey Anderson, very well could be the best light heavyweight in the world. There's no doubt about it. I'm not somebody that's going to, Scott Coker gets up there and says about every division. I'm not going to agree with him most of the time. But this is one that I think he has a very, very, very fair argument for.
Yeah, I personally will say this. UFC's got the deeper light heavyweight division rankings wise. I'm going to bring up some statistics to jump at you.
Top 10. Let's go.
The top 10. Number 10 in Bellator, Grant Neal. Number 10 in the UFC, we have Jamal Hill. That's a big jump. That's
really Grant could get a hold of his ass. You saw Grant just beat up the Jackson Wink prospect. Christian Edwards.
I think
Neal's a problem. Grant Neal could get on top.
Could too much of a could. Number 9.
Side with AJ.
Let's go to number 9. Let's go to number 9. I'm gonna compare it. Volkan Oezdemir, Alex Polizzi. I like Polizzi. I'm a Polizzi guy. He's my boy. I'm a big fan of Polizzi, but yeah, I gotta give it to Volkan.
UFC guys were favored in both of those fights. I see your point.
That's all I'm saying. Like number 8 though, Yoel Romero. Let's match it up. Versus number 8, Paul Craig. I'd be interested to see it.
What a weird fight that would be.
When we get, I think top 10 of the UFC is more. I think top 10. Top 10 is like there's a little more stacked. When you get into the top 3, Corey Anderson, absolute savage, Vadim Nemkov, monster, Phil Davis, monster, Bader staying at heavyweight. We just talked to him, but Rumble Johnson, monster. Those are the 4. Those are the big 4. I also really like Carl Ebrection. Really good. So those 5, I think, are competitive with a lot of UFC guys.
Yes.
I'll agree with Corey Anderson, potentially having the goods to beat Glover Teixeira. I'm excited to see what happens to Yuri Prochazka. If Yuri gets his hand raised there, then the UFC, I think, is back on like the top as far as the argument goes with Prochazka as number 1. But of course, Corey Anderson's top line. I mean, he came from the UFC. He's right there. I had to throw my guys, man. I love Bellator. I love him too. I know you got the shirt on, Mike, but I had to rep the UFC here out. I gotta go UFC.
No. I love the honesty, and we gotta drill down to it. I honestly believe Phil Davis might be wearing the belt in the UFC. I think Phil Davis would dominate Glover Teixeira. I honestly believe that Bellator has the better light heavyweights, and that's why I got to bring it up, because I got to give some hype to my organization. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. We got some good light heavyweights up in Bellator. Last Bellator question, I promise, Nolan. Nolan, you saw AJ McKee versus Pitbull. A lot of people actually have a lot of opinions about that fight all over the place. I've been one of those guys who's been a cheerleader for AJ McKee. I thought that was the first time we've ever seen him look vulnerable. It was interesting to see a very patient Pitbull come in there and just sort of win 3 out of 5 and do what he needed to do to win. He didn't come out there just trying to put AJ away. I feel like every time Pitbull gets in the cage, it's going to be a huge hook. He's going to try to rip your neck off with a guillotine. In this one, he seemed very patient, very calculated, did what he needed to do to get it on the scorecards. What were your impressions from that fight? And do you think that Alexander Volkanovski runs these guys over? I don't, but I think the popular opinion is that Volkanovski looks to be at a higher level.
Yeah, I think Volkanovski is at a higher level, but I have to tell you, man, Patricio Pitbull, that fight. I did score for Pitbull. I think that was the right call. I think that everybody talked about what was wrong with AJ McKee, but I think the big part of the storyline should be Patricio Pitbull is really good at figuring out what he does wrong when he does it. I mean, I think he's whatever, like he's got 6 losses and he's got rematches against all the guys. He's won every single one. Like, even if he's as confident in his abilities from that first fight that things went wrong, I got caught, that was a bad call, whatever. 99% of the people in the world would have some doubt in their mind. Like, shit, maybe this guy's just really that much better than me. And he came out, stuck to his game plan, clearly, had his timing down, catching McKee's kicks. I felt like just overall, the guy is very good at either his coaches are really good or he's really good at going back and really identifying what's wrong and or what he can capitalize on with his opponents. So I think that the third fight will be interesting because now it's AJ's turn to try to figure out what he did wrong. And we'll see. He's never had to do that really before. It's tough when you're analyzing your takedown submission or your 6-second knockout of Georgi Karakhanyan. I'm interested in that rematch. I think both those guys have very legitimate stakes or could very legitimately claim that they're, a top 5 guy, or they could say they're the best in the world. I'm not going to fault somebody that's in the top 5 for thinking that. But I think Alexander Volkanovski, I would have a very tough time picking against him in either one of those matchups.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's popular opinion. AJ, you pretty much agree with that.
I'm on Volkanovski, man. I'm a Volk guy. Nolan, it's been great to fucking meet you, man, and chat it up. Now I've seen your work. I've got to talk to you face to face. I know now you're a Massachusetts guy, man, so I got a lot of love for you now, man. It was great to have you here, bro. We'll definitely have you back in the future, man. Keep putting out those fantastic pieces, bro. I definitely want to keep reading them.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks. I'm glad we could finally do this. I know we had talked about it, I think even way back in, I don't know, maybe it was January, February or something. We finally got it done. So anytime you guys need me, obviously it was nice to meet you, AJ. Mike, I'll see you around. You guys know where to find me, all right?
Of course, we will have you back on anytime some drama's going on in MMA. I'll just give you a call, Nolan. Yeah. Nolan, we really appreciate you taking the time. One of the honest, hardworking guys on the ground in this sport, bringing you guys content. He is consistent. He is the man, Mr. Nolan King. Thank you for coming today, bro.
Thank you, brother. Give him a follow too. MMA_Kings on Twitter. Give our guy a follow.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both.
Thank you, Nolan. Brother. Much love, my brother. Love.
All right.
No lies on me.
Mike.
An hour 20 of interviews. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome. Me and AJ have been working for you guys.
We've been working, bro. We've been working. I'm excited to talk about a couple of these topics. We'll quickly run through UFC Vegas 55. Guys, smash the hell out of the like button if you haven't, and subscribe if you need to be locked in. I'll be honest, the card was great. The only fight we got to talk about, you feel like home. It wasn't a robbery, but you do agree it was a controversial decision. So therefore, I feel good about that. I feel good.
Of course. Well, it's not that I can have an opinion about that, man. It is a controversial decision. I haven't seen so much debate about a decision in a minute. So there's no question about it that fight, a lot of people saw different ways. With that being said, the popular opinion by far is with you, AJ, that Holly Holm was robbed in the middle of the night with a ski mask, that it was like a horrific decision. And AJ, you got passionate on your show. And I think had you won that fight, you were cashing some parlays or some shit. That fight was important to you. That's why you never bet against Mike Finch's main event picks. All right. That's really what happened here.
You're right. Never bet against the Finch man's main event picks, man.
Jokes.
I went against you, man.
Look, it was a good fight.
I thought that after. I said, God damn it. I said, why the fuck didn't I just sit back? But is what it is. Still, overall, was a fucking fun card to watch. Just kind of a sleeper main event. But I want to answer this question here because actually I saw it.
It was a good fight. It was a good fight.
Eh.
Oh my God, it was a great fight. I'm going one level up. Holly Holm versus
Mike, guys, Mike just told us
3 times now. It's better every time I watch it. Better every time I watch it. That was an excellent fist fight. Those ladies went to war. The right hands that Holly Holm ate, Ketlin was throwing them straight down the pipe. Boom, Holly's head was snapping back. AJ, Holly Holm for the first time wanted to pressure. Remember we were saying she's moving side to side? She tried to push her back, dude. She just kept running into right hands. So she had to go back to doing her Holly Holm shit, moving back side to side. She tried to come forward and ate a bunch of big rights, and she was able to move through it at 40 years old. That was a good fight.
She moves. She still moved. I don't know, man. I don't know. The popular opinion was it wasn't great. That's the popular opinion. Wasn't
Fuck that
terrible.
popular opinion. Fuck
Mike-
that. Those
Mike
ladies
goes
threw
against the
down for you
grain.
guys.
Against the grain Finch, bro. In and out, but really it's against the grain. I love it though, man. That's why we bring you, bro. We got to get those hard takes. Overall,
go.
though, some solid fights. We got a off week from the UFC, so we wanted to keep the content juicy. I am going to be dropping that full card breakdown tomorrow. I do have my picks. I feel like there's some interesting matchups, but I'll tell you guys straight out the gate. Like we said with Nolan, and we were talking about it, I feel like these cards are a little bit underwhelming. 56 is underwhelming. Main event, Volkov Rosenstruik. It's an okay main event. Co-main event, I literally have the breakdown done, and I need to pull up what the co-main event is. Danny Ige, Movsar. I'm interested in that fight. Before that, Felice Herrig, Karolina Kowalkiewicz 2. I love Felice. That's my girl right there. I'm a fan. I've been following her since tough.
Crystal Lake, Illinois, bro.
Come on,
I've known
she's
Felice
the
for
one.
like 15 years, bro.
Dude,
Felice from the Fight Chicks days,
she's a
back when she was
savage,
on
bro.
oxygen.
Dude, she's a fucking animal. But like the depth of it, it doesn't get you like, there's no Michel Pereira versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. So I'm just going to say, guys, like next weekend's card, it disappoints me a little bit. I do believe we're going to see some awesome fights, but name value wise outside of the top is lacking. And that's just the facts, but it's at the Apex. I'm coming to just expect the events at the Apex. It's hit or miss.
That's what they've done on purpose, man. They put all their eggs in one basket for these big pay-per-views. AJ, they're definitely bringing up they're grooming the talent at the Apex to then perform in these big cards, man. They're watering the flowers. So what our job is, and what I look for on these Apex cards, is who's gonna bloom, who's coming up, who's gonna be the next one on pay-per-view fights that we're excited about. Yeah. You pluck them out of these Apex cards, so you kind of get to see it before everybody else starts hyping the fights up. And that really helps when you get to those pay-per-view cards and you've been anticipating each Apex fight, right? This is why when AJ and I do these cards, it doubles us down on our feel for each fighter, because you got to make a prediction coming into these little, let's be honest, not the biggest fights. And then when they do get those big fights, we really know them.
Jailton Almeida. He's going to be somebody to keep an eye on. Exactly. I'm so excited. Let's talk some fun topics. I got to get excited. Let's forget about last week. Let's forget about the open scoring, whatnot. We went deep into it. I want to talk the Mystic Mac.
Oh, shit.
Because he said Beneil Dariush is like the most boring fighter in the UFC. Who is he? Like he said something like that on Twitter. Who's he fighting? He's talking a lot of smack. He's the Mystic Mac. What's the comeback for Conor McGregor? If I'm the UFC, I guess I'll tell you out the gate mine. I feel like you have to push him towards like title fight, maybe, or like big ass name value fight, because you lose. Let's say you do the Diaz fight and he loses. Now there's no more title fight. Now game done. Game set. Why would he lose to Diaz? Bro, Nate Diaz is very durable. He's got a solid gas tank. McGregor, I don't know. He's been inactive. Like, I want to see McGregor. Is he better than when he was in his absolute prime cardiovascular-wise? Concerns me. Yeah. And then you lose to Diaz. You get choked out again. It's done. Sure. Oliveira, him's huge. Usman, him is huge, but he definitely doesn't deserve those fights. Dustin Poirier, 4.
Isn't it fun to think about the Charles Oliveira Conor McGregor fight? It's just a fun matchup. I just rewatched Charles defending his belt against Justin Gaethje. It's just a fun fight because what Conor's not going to do is just run in there, miss a big shot, and end up on the mat. Like, Conor is actually good at playing the karate game if he wants to. If he wants to kind of keep you out here and play that game where he keeps you at the end of the punch and then comes right back out here, that might work really well against Charles Oliveira, because Charles doesn't really move his head side to side, so you can kind of line him up down the pipe, and it's not one of those things where Justin Gaethje's missing these huge shots and he's right in your zip code to be hit back. Conor's at a distance where it's pretty hard to hit him back. So I think if Conor can come in, show us some of that Taekwondo karate stance again, implement that with the boxing, I think that's actually a fun fight and an interesting matchup. As soon as it hits the ground, Charles is strangling him. I have no, I have no, delusions about what happens on the ground. You guys know I've been telling you to bet on Charles Oliveira all the way up before he was champ and all the way as champ. I'd pick him again. But that McGregor Oliveira fight, while it makes no sense and it should not happen, that would be fun, AJ.
I'm in. Throw me the fight. Let's fucking watch it. Islam Makhachev, it's gonna be the fight. It's coming, but let's give Makhachev one more. Let's just do one more. Let's keep building Makhachev.
No, keep Islam out of the cage with Conor. No,
not with Conor. Not with Conor. With Oliveira.
With Oliveira.
Dude, Conor's not beating Oliveira in my opinion. The odds are low.
The odds are low, but
if he did, he's going up to what's it called, welterweight. Like he's not sticking around to fight Islam. He's not fighting Islam.
Islam Makhachev versus Conor. I don't even want to see it.
I don't even
want to see it. I'm good. Yeah. So you're asking red panty night, badass graphic there. I think that's
it looks sick.
Congratulations to Koosha. That's freaking awesome.
That's sick.
We'll throw the wet red panties around, and I think whose red panties should be popping off would be Nate's girl. I think Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3 is the fight to make. The reason why is Conor needs a comeback fight. In boxing, you come back, you get a couple, warm-up fights, then you go and fight Deontay Wilder or something. Everybody thinks Tyson Fury came in and fought Deontay. No, he had a couple fights against, Tommy Schwartz, and, then you build yourself up to go fight the champ. So that's exactly what Conor should do. They should give him a fun fight like Nate Diaz. It makes perfect sense. AJ, Nate Diaz is not a top 10 lightweight. He is not, I think, going to offer the same problems that anybody else we talk about offers, including the guy who we're going to see at the top, Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler beats Conor McGregor. I think the better fight is one that we feel Conor is going to win. I believe the right fight is Nate Diaz versus Conor 3. Big at the pay-per-view box. Conor gets a W. Then we could start talking about this Charles fight. Does that not make more sense?
I think he needs to beat Oliveira. If he can't beat Oliveira, he needs to beat Nate Diaz to get Oliveira. Like, I don't know. I feel like we kind of need one more. The two Poirier fights are disappointing to say the least.
Poirier will beat him again.
I don't even want to see that. Michael Chandler and him's a fight. I like that. That's a super fight.
Conor could punch Michael Chandler in the face.
That's the thing with Chandler. He's just so hittable. Tony Ferguson could have been the fight. Tony Ferguson versus Conor McGregor would still do numbers. Like, that would be insane. Ferguson's one of the most popular guys in the UFC, man.
Yeah, absolutely. The fans love him too, so he gets in there and he's the hero. And it would be really, really fun fight to see. I think now's the time for Conor and Tony Ferguson. And let me not be disrespectful to Conor, guys, because I'm seeing in some of these comments here. Nick, Conor McGregor is not a top 10 lightweight. He's not a top 20 lightweight. When Conor was in his prime, he was showing us levels to his timing and his mix of like that karate stance with the boxing that we had never really seen at that level. I mean, Conor's
we'll never see again
down the pipe is the best we've ever seen in the sport. So Conor at one point was, a top 2, lightweight on earth. The issue is that that's not the same guy anymore. Everybody has peaks to their prime and whatnot, and Conor's came and went. And I've said it, for a long time, is that the first thing to go is your timing. And the first thing that we saw go with Conor, look at that the last 2 Dustin Poirier fights. His timing is not quite there. Sometimes he'll touch Poirier, but he doesn't feel like he could really lay on the gas pedal because he knows he's going to miss the punch. When you start losing your speed and your timing, that's when the career starts unraveling for you. We saw it happen so many times in the sport. The last thing you lose is like power, right? Conor still has that thump, and he's made some bad decisions outside of the cage too. Let's talk about like the lowering of the stance and the footwork thing. It's very strange.
He switched to boxing.
Conor, you've already got power. You don't need to hunker down in your stance and get cement feet. Like, you could already hit hard, bro. We want to see you on the balls of your feet. Exactly. Going back and forth to boxing did change his game. And then the alcoholism. I mean, look, I hate to say anything about it. I really do. But Conor is drunk often, and it's just not good. He's not living the life of a professional athlete. He's living the life of a millionaire who has accomplished everything already. That's great. But when you're talking about stepping into the cage in the future, yes, I would agree with our commenter there, Conor McGregor is not going to be able to compete with these top guys. That's why keep him away from Chandler, keep him away from Charles, definitely keep him away from Islam Makhachev. Give him Nate Diaz.
I'm in. Let's make it. Let's go. Let's do it. Red panty night.
It'd be fun. Fun fight.
Why
We're all gonna
not?
love that shit.
Why
Come on.
not? Why not?
Let's put on a great fight.
That's the fight. Let's keep running up. Next topic. Just announced. I got the poster in the background. Canelo Triple G, the trilogy.
Hey,
Third fight, man. Finally. 2017 was the first one. 2018 was the second one. And now we waited him out. Like, we waited Triple G out. That's Canelo's team. They waited him. I said, okay, he's 40. Let's fight him now. At 40 years of age, I don't think Golovkin has that same speed. And I think he's going to have a hard time landing that shot. And he's not going to outbox Canelo for 12 rounds.
Maybe.
Canelo, man. I love Triple G as much as the next guy. But I don't know, man.
If Canelo wants to just kind of, keep the gloves up and kind of keep taking shots, and if Canelo doesn't get back to boxing himself, remember that's the real difference in the second Triple G fight, right? Canelo's defense and his ability to score off a Triple G missing a jab was far better. And, I would like to see Canelo return to that style of boxing. It seemed like he lost that against Bivol. He sort of, like the way he was hanging out on the ropes, man, that's not Canelo's style. Canelo always makes you miss those little shots. The way he was just waiting on him with the hands up, I don't know what Canelo will get either. Definitely, the type of fight where, because there are so many X factors, I wouldn't be betting on it. I don't know what Canelo will get. I certainly don't know what Triple G will get.
Yeah, I feel like that fight, he was low output versus Bivol. And I'll say another thing. I also think Bivol's the most dangerous fighter that Canelo has ever faced. And I think a lot of people, and including myself, which I was stupid not to play Bivol because I've watched Bivol for a while and I was high on him, like when I was real into boxing. I fell into the trap of falling into the Canelo can't be beaten type mindset. No, he's another level. He was a 147. He was a welterweight.
Yeah.
You fight 175, Dimitri Bivol, the biggest. Everybody that Canelo has ever fought and beaten, I think Dimitri Bivol beats also. And I think Bivol beats Canelo a second time. So I don't even think the rematch really needs to happen. I think, take it as a trial, failed, go back down to 168, 160, probably 168. I don't even know if Canelo can make 60 anymore. Because I feel like 75, those guys are too big. I mean, is he going to beat Artur Beterbiev? I don't think so. Beterbiev might even be scarier than Bivol.
Especially at this point in his career, right? I think prime Canelo just a couple of years ago, literally 2 years ago, Canelo just seemed to have a certain snap and a certain ferocity to his striking. I see in the comments you guys are asking about what the odds are. Triple G plus 290, Canelo Alvarez minus 390. So a little bit wide.
Not that bad though for boxing. I'm used to seeing minus 2,000
for a Canelo fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to check who's scoring it too, because in boxing, I think the first Triple G fight, Triple G beat him. No,
I did too. I thought the exact same. Yeah.
So you got to be careful with the scoring in boxing. Nolan King, it was interesting earlier, said he didn't think the scoring in MMA was too bad. I think the scoring in championship boxing is pretty bad.
Yeah, it tends to be a little bit shady. Tends to be off. Guess those judges get bored after so many fucking rounds, man. 12 long rounds. Dude, I don't know. Boxing back in the day had a different energy to it. The game has changed. And honestly, that thing you said about the red gloves, I feel like when those red gloves were in, the fights were just better. Like you look back in the 80s, Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Like those fights were off the chain, bro. Now it's not the same. Like what happened? It's weird.
Part of what happened was, and Joe Rogan said this when he was debating Lou DiBella like a decade ago on I don't know, CNN or some shit.
I think it was on Fox with O'Reilly.
On Fox. There you go. So the famous debate, I think that's on YouTube. If you guys have never seen that, that's awesome. Joe Rogan and him going back and forth, MMA versus boxing. And Joe said it best back then. He said he was wrong about this, but there will be no new stars in boxing. They will all go to MMA. And it's interesting because if you think about how MMA has plucked some of these super athletes, how they plucked out the Francis Ngannous and these guys would have been boxers. So we've taken some spice from boxing and corralled them and hugged them into MMA, and were able to turn those potential boxing champions into MMA champions. I do think that you would see some of these champions in MMA have these career paths in boxing had the UFC never done what it did.
You really do, bro? I don't know if I think so, because I think MMA, the wrestling leads the way. You know, I'm a big fan of
Anderson
wrestling.
Silva should have been
Silva.
boxing his whole career.
Silva, different story. Silva would have been a champion. Yes. I'm trying to think, like, who's somebody that comes to mind? Max Holloway, he's a really good MMA boxer, but I really do think if you put him in a boxing ring versus one of those top guys, I guess now it's too late to know. If he would have only boxed from the age that he started martial arts to now, who knows? I guess we really don't know, man. So many ifs, but I don't think Ngannou has a shot in hell at becoming a champion in boxing. And even if he would have,
even when you see Wilder,
dude, Wilder would kill him, because Deontay Wilder, the thing is, you got to remember 6'7", right? And he also is only 220, 230 pounds. Ngannou's a lot heavier in boxing. That weight, I mean, Tyson Fury carries a lot of weight, but he's also 6'9". I just feel like Ngannou chose the right sport. The coach that said, hey, do this MMA thing, not boxing, did it right, because I don't believe he would have gotten past. Like, there's a turning point in boxing when you're like 10-0.
Yeah.
You have to fight somebody that's pretty good, 15-0.
Yep.
I think he would have lost when that turned, because he doesn't have the reflexes. He's got the power, but he doesn't have the reflexes. Wilder, he has the absolute insane knockout power to make up for his lack of technique. But honestly, man, he's so light that I think his movement helps him. And like those skinny arms, like something about it just gives him more pop. Like, I don't understand how it works, because you shouldn't be able to generate that much power from those legs. But
so
it's like a truck.
I do think if they made the fight in 2022 that Deontay Wilder would beat Francis Ngannou in a boxing match. By the way, that's the fight I want to see. Get out of here with this Tyson Fury
Don't
versus
do the
Francis
Fury
Ngannou
thing.
stuff.
It makes no sense.
Let's see the sluggers, dude.
Yes.
Let's see the sluggers throw down. Yeah. But AJ, I'm talking about in this parallel universe where you know, he always trained boxing. If we saw a more skilled Francis Ngannou, somebody who could come in there, actually put pressure, actually start doing what Tyson did, by the way, which is using his size in the clinch, being overwhelming, I do think that there is a pathway for Francis to be a much better technical boxer. He doesn't have that now, obviously, but the path is different. I'm just saying, if the UFC wasn't around, Joe Rogan's point, you know, to round this thing back up, is that you know, they would be in boxing, and that the UFC plucked some of those champions. A la Anderson Silva is probably the best example, because Anderson in his 40s has shown that he's still, you know, one of the most skilled boxers in the game, and he's like, what, 46?
Dude, I think right now you put Silva in there in boxing, even with an Adesanya, I think he can beat him in straight boxing. Let's do it.
Shit. Oh shit! Hey, him and Adesanya was good in MMA,
right? That was close, man. The styles make the fights, bro.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for some reason, like Anderson Silva, the MMA thing, something didn't click anymore. But boxing, something just flows so well, man. I love Anderson, bro. I want to see him fight Jake Paul, and I think he crushes Jake. So I don't think Jake takes it.
I'm telling you guys, Vitor Belfort versus Jake Paul. This is the fight.
Trying to kill the kid.
Fucking TRT Vitor in there, bro. That's what I want to see.
I don't know if that's TRT, bro. I don't know what the hell that is. That's rocket fuel, bro.
Woo-wee.
That's monster.
I mean, when he hit when he got in there with Evander Holyfield, Evander realized, like, oh shit, this guy's still fast. Like, Vitor's still got his speed, not just the power. Vitor's got the whole delivery system. So yes, I am trying to see the kid hit the canvas. Yes, Jake Paul versus Vitor Belfort. Take my money.
Let's go. Let's keep jumping up. We got another topic here. I guess we'll just quickly glance at UFC women's divisions. I guess the reason this topic's coming up is because there's been people, I don't want to say shafting the women's weight classes, but talking about less than quality product as of recent with the women's divisions. Recent fights.
Well, Rose and
I'm not saying that this is me even fully pushing this narrative, but I've heard people in the space saying that, oh, women's MMA isn't looking great, blah, blah, blah. But I've seen some amazing women's fights. I've always actually really enjoyed women's MMA, even on the Ultimate Fighter. You compare the heavyweight Ultimate Fighter fights this season. Have you watched Tough this season at all, Mike?
You know, I trickle in and out of Tough. I got to be religious with Tough. Yes, I have.
You need to just keep religiously watching this season.
Yes.
The fights for heavyweight haven't been amazing. the fights for women's flyweight haven't been amazing either, but I think they've been better. And I do think that in the women's divisions, like I like the hunt for talent because I know that you can find a gem a lot easier in women's flyweight than you can in men's heavyweight.
Good
Dude, the
point.
heavyweight division in MMA is just a lacking weight class, unfortunately. And the biggest truth comes behind other sports. You're a really good athlete. You might be playing basketball. You might be playing football. Imagine these guys all were wrestling and doing cage fighting, but even Gable Stevenson, man, he went to WWE. I'd be curious to see how he faces off against, an MMA fighter and changes his game.
AJ, why did he go to WWE? Why not come to the UFC?
Why is he getting kicked in the face when he could be making this much money doing stunts? It still hurts.
Got it.
Still hurts, but you're getting guaranteed money to only get knocked out by accident, not I go in there to get knocked the fuck out or try to knock someone out.
This is the hardest thing you could possibly do. I think wrestling's right up there, but luckily for them, when they go compete in wrestling, the worst thing they're going to get is like a snap down or a crossface. In mixed martial arts, this is you putting your body, everything on the line. It's the smart thing for Gable Stevenson to do, but back to your point, the heavyweight division is thinner. There are less heavyweights. So looking at the women's, I think the women's divisions are still kind of in this phase where they're just more and more women are doing mixed martial arts. We're seeing women who just started training maybe 2-3 years ago because they had heard about it for the first time. Now they're starting to have fights and come into these divisions. So, the more people that compete, the better it is the people at the top are, right? Whoever the state wrestling champion of California is one bad mother effer, right? If you're the state wrestling champion of Rhode Island, you probably beat like 4 dudes. You know what I'm saying? So you want to be at the top of the tallest mountain.
Was that a dig at me, bro? I was the state wrestling champ of Rhode Island, man.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah, it's becoming deeper. And so the women's divisions are becoming deeper. AJ, somewhere I want to take the UFC women's division talk is at the top of the divisions here, because you've got a dominant champion in Shevchenko, and you had a dominant champion in Rose Namajunas who just lost that title. I am so excited to see, for instance, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Wei Li, some of these women's fights that are coming up here to get to I think this is going to be some of the most fun we'll have, is seeing, like, I honestly would love to just see Joanna versus Carla. Just let her have the damn fight. But her and Wei Li is going to be insane. I think we're about to see some fun matchups in the ladies' divisions. Obviously, Amanda Nunes getting her shot again. To fight the Venezuelan vixen. So fun fights that these dominant champions now are finally into. For instance, Wei Li and Wei Li and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Early leans? Are we not gonna?
I'm gonna throw some
good
early
fight.
leans. Wei Li, Joanna. I'm rooting Joanna, but it's hard to say she's gonna beat Wei Li. I'm torn as hell, bro. Where are you
Wei Li
leaning?
beat her. Yeah, Wei Li beat her.
She got a very close decision.
Close fight. Good fight. I agree that is a pick'em type of a fight.
That's like this.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but Joanna looks good, man. Her training videos always really impress me. Holy shit, is Joanna in ridiculous shape, man. Her reflexes and how she looks on pads is insane. All right, let me get an early lean on one more. I'm really helping you guys out now. Tell me if I'm crazy, AJ. Is Amanda Nunes going to come get that title back?
I'm concerned because she broke in that last fight. She broke bad. And when you break later in your career, sometimes it's hard to turn it back. But she is the greatest woman of all time, right? She has to be. So
Holly
if
Holmes,
there's anyone,
combat sports, was a boxing champion as well.
Holly Holmes, she came back from devastating KO and became a UFC champ. But I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say yes, but I'm like really biting my out. If she really, like, she is the GOAT, right, of the women's weight classes. So if anyone can do it, it's going to be Amanda Nunes. Juliana Pena is nowhere near as skilled technically, but is the mind sound enough to be champion? Juliana Pena has grit like no other. She's going to keep coming forward. She'll fight through the adversity. Nunes needs to go into that fight with definitely more of a patient game plan. I think she went into the last one. She thought she was going to whitewash her. Just boom, finish, done.
No game plan.
None. Jermaine Durandame, that's the fight to base it off of, when she just was on top of Jermaine, grinding her out. Do a similar thing. I mean, Pena, I still think is going to struggle with the wrestling of Nunes. I think Nunes' biggest trouble will be if she gasses. She get tired, low output, take the fight to the floor, cage work, fight from distance. Don't let Pena get too crazy. Don't get into a brawl. If Nunes avoids looking for the knockout, I think she gets the hand raised. The problem is, will she fall into that, oh, I want to get back at you. Let's go to war. Juliana Pena is not an easy girl to put away. She's in your face all night. I picked Nunes, but Pena definitely is a legit shot, man.
I think it's all about what Nunes shows up, right? I didn't like this this news that she left ATT. I don't like that news. You know, ATT is so world class, and you know, her relationship with her coach, they're so close. So I got to read more about it, and you know, this would have been something good to ask Nolan about, actually, if he had inside info for us. But for sure, she was very successful at ATT. It's tough to see her leave. Look, I think the wrestling actually is not going to be the method, AJ. I really think that that Pena is the better wrestler, man. So I think that, you know, the kicking and using her Muay Thai, like you said, don't go for that finish. Don't try to go for that knockout. If it comes, it comes. But I think if she sits back there, just does her Muay Thai, uses that rear leg, you know, makes sure that when she lets her hands go, it's quick. They're coming right back. She's not planting her feet and banging. I think that's the way she gets to a victory. But, you know, the ball is in the court of the champ right now. Pena has a pathway to do it again, and you know, especially with Nunes leaving her camp and all that, it doesn't look good.
No, I'm scared. I'm scared, man. Got a question from Bird MMA. Shout out to my guy. Yo, when did Felice Herring versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz get put on the card? I think they just dropped it in yesterday. And then they also, as I was doing notes, I was finished. I was getting ready. I was going to record, and this is why I was ready to rock last minute here, bro, with us. They throw in another fight. It was Archuleta, who fought on The Ultimate Fighter last season, versus Damon Jackson. They added that fight in. So there's 2 new additions to the card in the past day for this coming weekend. Not this weekend, this coming weekend. This coming weekend, we got no UFC. We do have Tank Davis, Rolly Romero.
That's right. That's right. Shit. I like
no idea.
What about you?
I'm going Tank, but like I got no idea. I've never seen Rolly fight live. I just know he's crazy.
Yeah, you see him hitting the pads. That dude's got that heavy hands. You feel it when he smacks those pads. Listening to some of his pad work has been, you know, he definitely hits different. But no, I think Tank Davis will get it done. I like, you know, I think that's Floyd's little protege, man. That's the guy. I think Tank Davis gets it done, and then let's see Davis and Garcia.
Let's go. Now, I want to jump at something because I guess I kind of got to go towards the early lean side. I'm going to bring this right back up because we have to give an early lean.
Go ahead.
Rosenstruik versus Volkov. I'm not asking for an official pick. What's your like early pre-breakdown for us, Mike? I know my official take here. So
yeah, I think these guys have fought a lot of similar talent, you know, so it's it's cool to see how they performed against each guy, and they've been pretty 50-50 back and forth, right? The first time I ever saw a Volkov fight was at Bellator. It was in, I believe it was Memphis, Tennessee, when Rampage fought King Mo, and Volkov was on that. And I remember just being like, looking up at this huge heavyweight, like, all right, this guy's going to be in this sport for a while because his physical attributes are so valuable in that heavyweight division, man. If he could just keep you at bay and kickbox, he has the capabilities to beat anybody. The thing with Rosenstruik is Rosenstruik also has the capabilities to hurt Volkov on the feet. I think striker versus striker will be fun. You guys remember Volkov was beating Derek Lewis back in 2018 or whatever it was. He was winning that fight, and then he got knocked out. It could be something similar in this fight. I won't give the full prediction away, but it will be a fun one. I do think that heavyweight fight will deliver. I see bloody noses, and I see you know, two tired heavyweights who put it all in the cage on that one. That's a fun matchup, AJ.
What about Movsar Evloev, Dan Ige? Just an early preview, early. I don't want to hear nothing official. I'm excited to see Evloev wrestling at the higher level, fighting a real contender.
Yes. Yeah. I've been impressed with him, man. I've been impressed with him. That train could keep rolling, man. I've been, you know, and Dan Ige is a tough customer. So I hate to call Dan Ige like a gatekeeper, but that's sort of what this fight represents to me. This is you know, a skill check. Are you A level or not?
Yeah. We're going to find out. We're going to fucking find out. Mike.
Dan Ige gonna give him a fight.
Yeah. He's going to bring it. He's going to bring it. It's been a hell of an off-week show, man. We're almost 2 hours into this bad boy. I got a flight to catch at 6 in the morning, bro. So
hey, enjoy your vacation.
I mean, it's a vacation, but it's like my home away from home, man. I'm visiting some family. I'm gonna still be doing the show from the basement there. I got a nice little office at one of my aunt's house that I'll be staying in, bro. So I'm locked and loaded. I'm ready to work, bro. The show don't stop. The show don't stop. Just from the road show, the AJ DeVito road show.
The AJ DeVito Road Show continues. Well,
Yes,
I
sir.
will be happy to talk to you next Thursday. Then before this card, we'll get into all these fights, guys,
Oh.
and break the card down from top to bottom. We talked to Ryan Bader today. That was awesome.
That was sick.
You know, it was
That
good
was
to
sick.
see the champ coming through, especially Nolan King coming through, who we
Good
spent a
man.
lot of time with. So big
Yeah.
shout out to Nolan. Thank you
He's
so
the
much
man.
to him and MMA Junkie for coming through. And you guys just got to hang out with the Bellator heavyweight champ, the guy who was, you know, Daniel Cormier called him what? The toughest fight in the UFC, right? Wasn't that what he said?
Something like that, but they never made it. Sadly, he never got a
Daniel
title
Cormier
shot.
said, I want the easiest fight in the heavyweight division. I
Yeah, he
want
did.
Ryan Bader. That's what it was.
Holy shit.
I was just
We
talking-
had a question in the chat. It was for Ryan Bader. I didn't want to ask it. It said did he ever feel like he deserved a title shot in the UFC? I was like, I don't know if this is a good question. I appreciate you guys I couldn't ask that one. I saw it there, but I didn't feel comfortable asking Bader. I didn't want to bring up any sore spots. I didn't know like if there was any ill will to the UFC or whatnot. So I just didn't want to jump on that one.
Well, you know, he did fight John Jones, guys. And for those of
Yeah.
you guys who haven't seen Ryan Bader versus John Jones, to me, that's John Jones' most impressive performance of his career. Just because when John was coming up, he was good and all. He was throwing Stephan Bonner around and he looked impressive, but we didn't really know what he would look like against like a D1 All-American wrestler like Ryan Bader. And I thought, okay, here we go. Now we're really going to find out, is John Jones the best wrestler? Holy shit. Did John Jones shut Ryan Bader down that night? Was able to get to the front headlock and eventually get the finish. So I think that that was John's most impressive performance against Ryan Bader. In a rematch, I think it would have looked a lot different, especially nowadays type of John Jones. Man, Ryan Bader's a big problem. You know, if you guys watched him and the Russian throwdown, Moldavsky, man, Ryan still got it in his 40s. I don't know if that's true about John. It would have been fun to see, man. I think Ryan Bader versus Glover Teixeira, for instance, good fight. You know, it's too bad that the career didn't end up like that. But Ryan Bader's been at the top of the game for a long time. Had he been in the UFC that whole time, you know, again, I think he could beat a Glover Teixeira. I do think that it's possible he would have wore that belt.
You hating on my man Glover, man. You want to take him down. You want to see ultimately. I know what you want, Mike. You want the crossover. You want the UFC Bellator crossover, and you want to look me in the face and say, Bellator got it. We're never going to see it. So the UFC will reign supreme, but Bellator is great. Bellator is great. I love Bellator.
I got love for
Bellator.
both. All right. You
Yeah,
guys have never heard me say a bad thing about the UFC. You know, I don't have to, I grew up, you know, a UFC fan ever since I was a little kid. So I genuinely love the organization. You know, when fighter pay comes up and stuff, you never hear me shitting on the UFC. I always do the exact opposite, actually. So I got love for all the organizations, man, especially the UFC.
My man, Mike, it's been a pleasure as always. Guys, give Mike a follow. Check out the Mike Finch Show on YouTube. Check him out across all the social media platforms. I'm giving you the shout, man. I'm giving you the shout. The Mystic Mike in the house for us. We'll be live next week with the full card breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed this off-week show. We wanted to keep the content coming. We're not going to take any weeks off ever. Pretty much every show, every week. Forever, bro. Let's get to 1,000, bro. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Cheers to you on that.
We'll be old men. You know, I'll be in the wheelchair.
I'll have this big gray beard down to here.
Yes. Hamzat will have already won 4 titles and retired, you know. So
or he loses emphatically, and I was wrong. We'll find out.
So you'll be seeing us every Thursday. Keep it locked in here. Even if there's not fights, we're still bringing the heat with these interviews. We're going to bring in high-level guys, Curtis Blades, Ryan Bader. We're going to keep that type of level of energy coming in here.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Mike, much love, my brother. I enjoyed chatting it up with you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Smash the likes, subscribe if you're new. I got the full card breakdown for this UFC Vegas 56 card. I'll have it dropping tomorrow. So that should be pretty fun, man. Some interesting potential plays on there. I'm excited to see what you guys think. Much love, and we will see you all on the next one. Peace.
Peace.